The egg should have been cold. Illyrio Mopatis had held it 100 times in 100 moods. Greedy, frightened, pleased, bored, and it had always been what the world insisted it was. A beautiful lie. Stone, heavy with the promise of fire and the certainty of disappointment. He had bought it from a man who swore by his mother's bones that it came from the smoking slopes where Valyria had once been. Illyrio Mopatis had paid him well and then paid again to have him killed, because some truths were worth more dead than spoken. Tonight, the egg sweated in Illyrio Mopatis' palms. The candles shivered, although the air was still. A low heat rose from the shell, not the honest heat of a brazier, but something that seemed to come from within, as if a small sun had been locked behind scales of smoke-gray stone. The pale amethyst veins that webbed it had looked decorative in daylight. Now they glimmered faintly, like embers refusing to go out. Illyrio Mopatis licked his lips. His mouth tasted of the spiced capon he had eaten too quickly at supper, and of fear. "You are certain?" he asked, though he had already seen the proof against his skin. The boy by the door did not look up. He was one of Varys' little birds in all but name, a child trained to listen, to carry, to vanish. His head was shaved clean, and his ears still held the faint scarring where an older master would have cut them close to the skull to make him less distinctive. Illyrio Mopatis preferred not to ask what had been cut from him besides. "3 hatched," the boy whispered. "On the Dothraki Sea. Khal Drogo dead." The silver-haired girl walked into fire. She came out alive. Illyrio Mopatis had heard the first rumors days ago, and laughed and drank and laughed again. Men in Pentos told tales the way they gambled, with other people's coin. But the stories had multiplied. Sailors from Qohor, merchants from Norvos, a priest from Myr whose hands shook when he spoke of it. Even in Pentos, where the cheese was soft and the lies softer, a miracle could not be entirely smothered. Now the miracle warmed in his hands. He set the egg above the brazier and watched the sweat bead and run. A single drop slid into the coals and hissed like a serpent. The smell that rose was not oil or resin. It was sharp and metallic, like hot iron quenched in blood. The Braavosi guard shifted his weight, the rings on his armor whispering. "Magister," he said carefully, as if he feared the egg might hear him. "It is dangerous to keep such a thing." "Dangerous to keep," Illyrio Mopatis agreed, "and dangerous to lose." He thought of the other 3 eggs, creamy gold, green and bronze, black and scarlet, passed off as wedding gifts with a shrug and a smile, as if he were merely a fat man with fat pockets and fat indulgences. He had watched Daenerys Targaryen turn them in her hands, young fingers reverent. He had watched Khal Drogo laugh at the stones. He had watched Varys' pale face give away nothing at all. Those had been his gamble. This egg had been his insurance. Illyrio Mopatis had told himself that 3 were enough, because 3 made a tale fit for singers. 3 had weight. 3 echoed the old stories. 3 heads of the dragon. And yet he had kept the 4th because he could not help himself. There was always a 4th when Illyrio Mopatis counted the future. 1 more cup of wine, 1 more purse of coin, 1 more secret held close. 1 more chance. He lifted the egg again. It pulsed against his palms, so subtle he might have imagined it if his own heartbeat were not so sudden. He had once felt the heart of a lamb beneath its wool, an animal too foolish to know it was dying. This was not that. This was something waking. In the deep of the shell, the veins brightened, then dimmed. Illyrio Mopatis' mind raced along the roads of consequence. If the silver-haired girl in the grasslands had truly brought dragons back into the world, then the world would not stay the shape it was. Kings would become smaller. Cities would become flammable. Men who had smiled at Targaryen names would learn to fear them again. And a man who possessed an unhatched dragon might be the most valuable man alive, or the first man to be roasted when the dragons came looking for what was theirs. He could keep it, hide it, build walls of gold and mercenaries around it. He could sell it, though to whom? The Sea Lord of Braavos would smile and refuse. The princes of Qarth might pay, then betray. The slavers of Yunkai would pay and then chain the hatchling with cruelty until it burned them from inside their own houses. or he could send it where it belonged and bind the mother of dragons to him with gratitude. Gratitude, he reminded himself, was a leash gentler than any chain. A ship, Illyrio Mopatis murmured. Quiet, swift, not one of mine. The Braavosi guard frowned. To where? Illyrio Mopatis did not answer at once. His eyes went to the window, to the dark beyond his gardens where the sea lay unseen. He imagined the long road east, past the stepstones where pirates made kingdoms of driftwood, past Volantis with its great bridge and its greater arrogance, around the smoking curve of the old Valyrian peninsula where men still swore the air tasted of ash, and on to Slaver's Bay where the silver-haired girl sat on a conquered pyramid like a queen in a story. Meereen, they called it, and spoke the name as if it were a sickness. Freedmen and plague and war. A city with walls of many-colored bricks and a queen who had decided that chains were an offense to her heart. She would be besieged. She would be alone. She would need friends. Illyrio Mopatis smiled, and the smile did not reach his eyes. To Daenerys Targaryen, he said. To our little queen. The boy by the door swallowed. The spider says... He began, then stopped himself as if his tongue had snapped. Illyrio Mopatis leaned forward. The spider says what? The boy's eyes flicked up at last, terrified and devout eye. And the same instant, the spider says the realm is restless. The Lion Queen in King's Landing grows sharp as a knife. The little king is not long for his crown. The spider says the world is changing. The spider, Varys, a eunuch who spoke softly and moved kingdoms with whispers. Varys in King's Landing, playing the game as if it were a harp and he were the only man who knew the song. Illyrio Mopatis felt a flare of irritation. Varys had always been too careful with his secrets. Illyrio Mopatis liked secrets that could be weighed in the hand. The spider always knew the world was changing, Illyrio Mopatis said. He simply chooses the hour to admit it. He turned the egg, watching the sweat slide. Send him word. Tell him the last of my little treasures has awakened. The boy nodded once, jerky. And tell him, Illyrio Mopatis added, voice low, that a dragon may choose its own rider. The Braavosi guard stared. Dragons are beasts. Illyrio Mopatis' laugh was soft. Beasts, yes, but beasts bred by sorcery and pride. Beasts that remember. He thought of old Valyria, of dragon lords binding fire with blood and language. He thought of the Targaryens who had fled the doom and conquered Westeros with 3 dragons. 3, always 3. Perhaps the world did not want 3 any longer. Perhaps it wanted 4. He carried the egg to the carved table where he kept his ledgers and his lies. He placed it gently on a cushion of red velvet. The velvet darkened as the egg's sweat soaked in, as if the stone were bleeding into the cloth. Illyrio Mopatis dipped his quill and began to write a letter in careful, florid phrases. He wrote of loyalty, of devotion, of the honor of serving a true queen. He wrote of a gift sent with love. He wrote nothing of fear. All the while, the egg warmed the air around it, and in the corners of the room the shadows seemed to curl closer, as if they too wanted to listen. Dawn made Meereen look almost innocent. From the height of the Great Pyramid, Daenerys Targaryen could see the city's many-colored bricks blush beneath the newborn sun. The harpy-topped pyramids cast long shadows like claws across the streets. Smoke rose from cook fires and kiln vents, and here and there, from something less ordinary. A house burned in the night, a body given to flame before rot could make it worse. The air smelled of salt from the bay, and of horse from the stables she had seized, and of sweet rot from the river that fed the city's thirst. Somewhere below, a woman wailed. Somewhere else, a man laughed too loudly, trying to convince himself that the day would not demand more blood. Daenerys Targaryen rested both hands on the terrace rail. The stone was cool, but her skin remembered heat. It always did. Sometimes she could still feel the crackle of Drogo's pyre beneath her feet, as if the world had branded her and refused to let her forget. Behind her, Missandei's soft footsteps whispered over the tiles. "Your Grace," Missandei said, as gentle as prayer, "there are petitioners waiting in the audience hall." Daenerys Targaryen did not turn at once. The city was quieter from up here, as if distance could make suffering polite. "Tell them to wait," she said. Her voice sounded sharper than she intended. She softened it with a breath. "Tell them I will come." Missandei hesitated. Daenerys Targaryen could imagine the girl's face. Earnest, worried, too young to carry the weight of a queen's moods. "Grey Worm says there was another killing in the night," Missandei added. "In the Street of Reeds." Daenerys Targaryen closed her eyes. The Street of Reeds, where the freedmen had built their shacks from whatever they could steal or salvage. The Street of Reeds, where the sons of the Harpy moved like ghosts, knives slick with perfumed poison. "How many?" she asked. "One," Missandei said. "A healer." Her throat cut. "A healer." Daenerys Targaryen's fingers tightened on the rail. She had freed men and women from chains only to watch them die in alleys because they dared to live without masters. Meereen resisted her not with armies alone but with spite, with the slow poison of fear. Every death was a message scratched into flesh. "You cannot save them. You are not from here. Go away." Grey Worm's voice came from her left, low and careful. "The Unsullied can patrol more. We can take more men. We can take hostages." Daenerys Targaryen opened her eyes. Grey Worm stood rigid in his armor, bronze helm under his arm, face carved into discipline. Even without the helm, he looked like a man who had been made rather than born. "And when we take hostages?" Daenerys Targaryen asked. "When we take sons from fathers, daughters from mothers, what then? Shall I chain them in the cells below the pyramid and call it justice?" Grey Worm did not flinch, but the muscles in his jaw tightened. "It will stop the killings." "For a day," Daenerys Targaryen said. "For a week, and then they will find new ways. They always do." Hizdahr zo Lorak cleared his throat softly, as if to remind the world he existed without demanding it. He wore green and gold silk that caught the dawn like a leaf catching sun. His rings glittered, heavy on delicate fingers. "There are other ways," Hizdahr zo Lorak said. "Your Grace knows my counsel. Mercy, compromise. Let Meereen breathe. Let Meereen breathe." Hizdahr zo Lorak spoke as if Meereen were a patient whose fever could be soothed with cool cloths. Daenerys Targaryen knew what Meereen's fever truly was: power. Men who had always held it did not surrender it because a girl from across the world asked them politely. "Compromise," Daenerys Targaryen echoed and tasted bile. Compromise meant leaving some children in chains so the masters could feel their world had not ended. Compromise meant marrying Hizdahr zo Lorak so the old blood of Meereen could claim her as a decoration rather than an axe. She had agreed to much already. She had reopened the fighting pits, though every scream inside them felt like a betrayal of the girl she had been. She had allowed the great masters to keep their houses, though those houses had been built on the backs of slaves. She had eaten at tables where the meat had once been carried by chained hands. Each compromise was a cut, small but deep. Sometimes she wondered how many cuts a queen could bear before she bled out. Above the city, a shadow passed. Daenerys Targaryen looked up instinctively. Far off, against the pinkening sky, a dragon circled. Drogon, she thought at first, heart lifting and tightening all at once. But Drogon did not circle like that. Drogon hunted like an arrow, sharp and hungry. This shadow moved slower, as if it were thinking. Regal, then, or Viserion. Except both were locked below, their chains rattling in the dark like angry prayers. Daenerys Targaryen's breath caught. For half a heartbeat she imagined she had grown mad, that Meereen's heat had boiled her thoughts, that she was seeing things that were not there. Then the dragon dipped a wing and vanished behind the far pyramids. It might have been a cloud, she told herself. It might have been smoke, but the air felt different, charged as before a storm. Missandei's voice cut through her thoughts. "Your Grace, there is a ship in the harbor. Pentos' ship. It flies no banner, but it has asked permission to dock with gifts." Daenerys Targaryen turned at last. Missandei held a scroll sealed with wax. Grey Worm's eyes were already narrowed. Hisdar zo Lorak's mouth curved as if he had been expecting this. "Gifts," Daenerys Targaryen said. "From whom?" "The captain would not say," Missandei replied. "Only that the gifts are for Daenerys Targaryen, Queen of Meereen, and that the sender claims to be a friend from the beginning." From the beginning. Daenerys Targaryen felt the words settle on her skin like ash. Illyrio Mopatis, the fat man in Pentos with his honeyed speech and his soft hands. Illyrio Mopatis, who had given her dragon eggs as if they were baubles. Illyrio Mopatis, who had smiled and watched and never answered the questions that mattered. Daenerys Targaryen took the scroll. The wax was red. The seal was a fat man's hand with a ring. She did not need to break it to know. Her stomach tightened. In Meereen, gifts were rarely gifts. They were hooks disguised as flowers. "Bring the captain to me," Daenerys Targaryen said. "And bring the gifts to the pyramid, under guard. If there is poison in them, I want it found before it finds me." Grey Worm bowed. "Yes, your grace." Hisdar zo Lorak spread his hands. "Perhaps this is good fortune," he said smoothly. "Friends are valuable in these times." Daenerys Targaryen met his eyes. In them she saw ambition dressed as gentleness. "Perhaps," she said, and felt the dawn's fragile beauty crack like thin ice. As she turned toward the stairs, a gust of wind rose from the bay. It lifted her braids and tugged at her gown. For a moment she smelled something beneath the salt and smoke. Something sharp, metallic, like hot iron quenched in blood. Her steps slowed. Somewhere deep in the pyramid, chained dragons stirred and hissed, as if they too had caught the scent of what was coming. The audience hall had once belonged to masters. The black walls were carved with harpies and slaves. Triumphs in stone meant to last longer than guilt. Daenerys Targaryen had ordered the worst of the carvings chipped away, but the ghosts remained in the gaps, in the scars where chisels had bitten. The air always tasted faintly of dust and old incense, as if the pyramid remembered prayers spoken to false gods. She sat above them all, on a dais of black stone that had been polished by generations of sandals and blood. The seat beneath her was not a throne, not truly. It was a chair with sharp angles and no comfort. Meereen did not give comfort to queens. It tested them. The Pentoshi captain knelt at the foot of the dais. He was a lean man with skin browned by sun and salt, hair braided in the style of the eastern seas. His coat smelled of brine and tar. When he spoke, his accent dragged the words like nets through water. "My queen," he said, and Daenerys Targaryen noted how carefully he avoided the Giscari titles. He did not call her Khaleesi. He did not call her Breaker of Chains. He spoke as if naming her was dangerous. Daenerys Targaryen's fingers rested on the arm of her chair. She could feel the eyes of the hall. Freedmen in rough linen, nobles in perfume and silk, unsullied in rigid lines, and behind them all the whisper of spies who would carry every syllable back to her enemies. "What is your name?" she asked. "Captain Markilo," the man said. "Of the Wind-Kissed. I bring gifts from a friend." "A friend," Daenerys Targaryen repeated. Ser Barristan Selmy stood to her right, white cloak hanging like a banner of another life. His face was lined, his eyes watchful. He had served kings and watched them die. Daenerys Targaryen trusted him more than she trusted almost anyone in this city, which meant she trusted him less than she wished she could. To her left, Skahaz Emo Kandak, the Shave Pate, wore his bronze mask, its harsh features reflecting torchlight. Under the mask, his shaved scalp gleamed. He stood like a dagger waiting to be used. "Gifts are daggers wrapped in velvet," Skahaz Emo Kandak said. His voice came muffled through the mask, like wind through a tomb. "Let me question him. Let me cut truth from him." The captain flinched, but held his kneel. Daenerys Targaryen lifted a hand, palm down. "The gifts," she said. "Show them." At a gesture from Captain Markilo, two sailors hauled forward a lacquered chest. It was heavy enough that their shoulders strained. The chest was bound in bronze bands etched with curling patterns Daenerys Targaryen did not recognize at first. Then she realized, with a slow chill, that the patterns were Valyrian glyphs, stylized flame, stylized wing. Her heartbeat stumbled. An Unsullied stepped forward, expression blank, and struck the lock with the butt of his spear. The bronze snapped with a sharp crack. When the lid lifted, heat rolled out. It was not the heat of trapped air warmed by travel. It was living. It brushed Daenerys Targaryen's cheeks like a hand. Inside, nestled in wool and ash, lay an egg. It was larger than the eggs Illyrio had given her. Perhaps because it had not been carried by her for months. Perhaps because the world had chosen to mock her expectations. Its shell was smoke gray, darker in the hollows, lighter on the raised scales, as if a storm had been trapped and turned to stone. Through the gray ran veins of pale amethyst and dull gold, twisting like lightning through cloud. The egg glimmered faintly in torchlight. Or perhaps it was not torchlight at all. Perhaps it glimmered with its own stubborn refusal to be dead. A low murmur rippled through the hall. Freedmen leaned forward. Masters stiffened. Someone whispered a prayer to a god Daenerys Targaryen did not know. Ser Barristan Selmy's breath hissed through his teeth. "Seven save us," he murmured. Skahaz Mo Kandak took a step as if drawn despite himself. Even through his bronze mask, Daenerys Targaryen could feel his hunger. Daenerys Targaryen stood slowly. The hall seemed to tilt, as if the egg had pulled gravity toward it. She descended the dais one step at a time, aware of every eye. Her sandals made no sound on the stone. Her braids, threaded with bronze bells, chimed softly, the sound too delicate for what she was approaching. The egg radiated heat. The wool beneath it was damp, darkened as if it had been soaked. The scent rising from it was sharp, metallic, like hot iron quenched in blood. Daenerys Targaryen reached out. Ser Barristan Selmy's hand caught her wrist. His grip was gentle but firm. "Your Grace," he said low. "It may be cursed, or poisoned." Daenerys Targaryen met his eyes. "It is a dragon's egg," she said, and felt the words settle into her bones. How could it be poisoned? Ser Barristan Selmy did not answer. He did not need to. Dragons were poison to some men. Daenerys Targaryen freed her wrist and touched the egg. The shell was warm, not just warm, alive. She felt a faint vibration beneath her fingertips, like the purring of a cat, like the distant drumbeat of hooves on the Dothraki Sea. Her throat tightened. For a moment she was back in the red waste. Hunger gnawing, Meereen Maz Dur's screams swallowed by fire. She remembered the moment she had placed her hands on stone eggs and felt nothing. Only stubborn hardness. Only disappointment. This was different. This was the world breathing. Daenerys Targaryen pulled her hand back, suddenly afraid that if she held the egg too long it would burn her, or worse, it would change her again. "Who sent this?" she asked, voice steady with effort. Captain Markilo swallowed. "Magister Illyrio Mopatis, Your Grace." There it was, the fat man's name heavy as a chain. "And why?" Daenerys Targaryen demanded. "Why now? Why send this to me?" Captain Markilo spread his hands, palms up. The Magister said it belonged with dragons. He said the world remembers you. He said he wanted to honor the queen he once helped. Daenerys Targaryen tasted the word. Illyrio Mopatis had helped her the way a man helped a hound by loosening its leash before a hunt. He had wanted her across the narrow sea. He had wanted her dragons or her death. Skahaz Mo Kandak's voice cut in sharp as a lash. "He wants a hook in you," he said. "He wants you to dance on his strings. Let me cut the strings. Let me take this egg and crush it." A hiss rose from the back of the hall, where freedmen clustered. "No," someone whispered. "Dragon, dragon." Daenerys Targaryen looked over her shoulder. Faces stared back, eyes bright with desperate hope. They had watched her ride through the city with dragons perched on her shoulders like living crowns. They believed dragons meant freedom, meant protection. They did not see the other truth. Dragons meant fire. Dragons meant death. Dragons meant a queen who might one day decide that mercy was weakness. Hisdar Zo Lorak stepped forward, silk whispering. "Your Grace," he said, voice smooth as oil. It is a rare and sacred gift. We should show gratitude. We should invite the captain to feast. Skahaz Emo Kandak's masked head turned toward Hisdar Zolorak. You would feast with poison, he said. Your father's house feasted while slaves died in the pits.
Hisdar Zolorak's smile tightened.
And now the pits are open again, he replied softly, because your grace understood the value of tradition. Daenerys Targaryen felt the hall closing in. Voices, eyes, pressure.
Serva ristan selmai leaned closer.
Your grace, he murmured. It may be wise to accept the gift but not to trust the giver. Daenerys Targaryen looked down at the egg. Its amethyst veins seemed to brighten under her gaze, as if it were pleased to be seen. A foolish thought, she told herself. It is stone. Cannot be pleased. But the heat against her skin felt like breath. She imagined crushing it as Skahaz Emo Kandak suggested. Quick end. A denial of whatever Illyrio Mopatis hoped to gain. But her hand would not lift to strike. She had not come through fire to destroy fire. She had come through fire to become it. Captain Markilo, Daenerys Targaryen said, turning to the kneeling man, you will be given quarters. You and your crew will remain in Meereen until I decide otherwise. You will not leave the city. You will not walk unguarded. If you have brought poison, you will die. Captain Markilo bowed his head. As you command, your grace. Daenerys Targaryen faced the hall. The egg will be taken to my chambers, she said. No one touches it without my leave. A murmur rose again, half awe, half fear. As the Unsullied lifted the chest and bore it away, Daenerys Targaryen watched the egg's faint glow through the wool and felt something cold in her stomach. The city's enemies were outside its walls, but the most dangerous gifts were the ones that arrived smiling. Night in Meereen was a living thing. It crept through the pyramid's corridors, thick with heat and the scent of old stone. It brought with it whispers, the rustle of silk, the soft pad of bare feet, the distant clank of chains below where dragons shifted in darkness. It brought the city's breath up the stairs. Spices, sweat, sewage, smoke. Daenerys Targaryen dismissed most of her attendants. She did not want a crowd. Crowds made rituals into theater, and she had learned, painfully, that theater could turn a queen into a puppet. Only Missandei remained and Ser Barristan Selmy, and, at Daenerys Targaryen's insistence, two Unsullied outside the door who would not be tempted by gold or threatened by screams. The egg sat in a bronze brazier filled with coals and resins. The coals had been banked low, not blazing, but the air above them shimmered with heat. Daenerys Targaryen had ordered the resins chosen carefully. Myrrh for memory, frankincense for prayer, dried dragon pepper for bite. She did not know if such things mattered. She did not know if anything mattered, except fire. The egg's amethyst veins glowed faintly, like stars seen through smoke. Ser Barristan Selmy stood near the door, hands clasped behind his back as if he were guarding a king. His armor had been removed. He wore a simple tunic, but he still looked armored by duty. You do not have to do this, Ser Barristan Selmy said quietly. Daenerys Targaryen did not look away from the egg. If it hatches, it will hatch whether I wish it or not, she replied. Better here, better under my eye. And if it does not? Ser Barristan Selmy asked. Daenerys Targaryen's mouth tightened. Then Illyrio Mopatis has sent me a stone to mock me, and I will remember. Missandei approached with a silver bowl of water. The water's surface trembled slightly, though nothing touched it. Your Grace, Missandei said softly, you have not eaten. Daenerys Targaryen almost laughed. If I eat, will it hatch? She asked. If I sleep, will the sons of the Harpy stop killing my people? If I smile, will Meereen love me? Missandei's eyes shone with unshed tears. No, she whispered. Then let me do what I can, Daenerys Targaryen said, and reached for the small knife on the table. It was a slender blade of Valyrian make, gifted by a freedman who had stolen it from a master's treasure room. The steel was dark, almost black, and drank torchlight. Daenerys Targaryen had not dared to ask where the freedman had found such a thing. Some gifts came with stories better left untold. She pressed the blade to her finger and drew it across the pad. Pain flared, sharp and clean. Blood welled, bright as rubies in the torchlight.
Sebaristan salmis bratisha.
Your Grace. Daenerys Targaryen held up her bleeding finger. It is only blood, she said. And if blood is what it wants, it will have mine before I give it another's. She touched the egg. Her blood smeared across the smoke-gray scales, staining the grooves between them. The egg's heat surged, sudden enough that Daenerys Targaryen's breath caught. The amethyst veins flared brighter, and for an instant the dull gold threads within them seemed to move, like living light. Daenerys Targaryen's heart hammered. She leaned closer, feeling the heat on her face, on her lips, like the breath of a furnace. The coals hissed as the egg sweat dripped down. She began to speak, not because she was sure words would help, but because silence felt like surrender. In the old tongue, High Valyrian, the words tasted strange and ancient in her mouth. She had learned them from tutors and priests and from the stubborn need to belong to something older than fear. The words had once been used to command dragons. The words had once been used to bind fire to flesh. Dracarys, she whispered, not as a command, but as an invitation. Nothing happened. Daenerys Targaryen's throat tightened. She swallowed, ignoring the sting of smoke in her eyes. She tried again, not the harsh command, but the soft cadence she had used when her first dragons were small enough to perch on her shoulders. Come, she whispered in Valyrian. Come to me. The egg trembled. It was not imagination. The shell shuddered beneath her palm, subtle as a heartbeat. Missandei gasped. Ser Barristan Selmy stepped forward, then stopped himself, fists clenched. A faint crack sounded, like ice breaking on a river. Daenerys Targaryen froze. Another crack, louder. A line split the shell, thin at first, then widening as if something inside were pushing with stubborn determination. Heat poured out in a wave that made the torches flare and bow. The resins in the coals ignited with a sweet, choking perfume. Daenerys Targaryen's blood on the egg's surface began to steam. The crack spread. A piece of shell lifted. Something wet and dark pressed against it from within. Daenerys Targaryen's breath came shallow. She did not blink. She did not dare. The shell broke open with a sharp snap. A small head emerged, slick with fluid, eyes closed tight. The hatchling scales were not smoke gray like the shell, but a shifting color like ash in moonlight, dark in shadow, pale where torchlight touched. Along its spine ran tiny ridges the color of bruised amethyst. Its wings, folded tight against its body, were thin and veined like a bat's, but the membrane shimmered with faint gold flecks as if dusted with sunlight. It was small, smaller than Drogon had been when he first crawled from his egg, but it moved with an eerie purpose. Its claws dug into the broken shell, and it hauled itself out with a strength that did not belong to something newborn. Paused, head lifting, its eyes opened. They were pale gold, almost white, like molten metal cooled just enough to hold shape. The hatchling looked at Daenerys Targaryen. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then the hatchling made a sound. Not the hungry screech Daenerys Targaryen remembered from her first Drago. An S, but something softer, like a low churr. It blinked slowly, head tilting as if it were listening. Daenerys Targaryen felt a rush of fierce joy. A dragon. Another dragon. The world had given her more fire. Her hand reached out instinctively. The hatchling's head turned slightly away, not in fear, but in consideration. Its gaze slid past her, toward Missandei, toward Ser Barristan Selmy, toward the door as if it could sense the unsullied beyond. It tasted the air with a thin, forked tongue, and the tip flicked toward Daenerys Targaryen's bleeding finger. It stepped forward, claws clicking on bronze, and licked the blood. The touch was hot and rough. Daenerys Targaryen did not pull back. Her heart thundered with a wild, almost desperate affection. There, she whispered. There you are. The hatchling did not climb onto her, did not curl against her chest. It moved past her hand onto the rim of the brazier. It lifted its head again, and the pale gold eyes narrowed, as if it were focusing on something far away. Daenerys Targaryen felt a sudden prickling along her arms. From deep below, the chained dragons roared. The sound rose through stone like thunder. Rhaegal's fury, Viserion's hunger, both crashing against their chains. Drogon, free somewhere in the night, answered from afar with a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. The hatchling flinched at the sound, then steadied. It spread its small wings slightly, as if testing the air, and made that low chirr again. It sounded almost thoughtful. Ser Barristan Selmy's voice was hoarse. "A fourth," he breathed. "By all the gods." Daenerys Targaryen's joy tightened into something else, something wary. A dragon was power, but power was never simple. She watched the hatchling's pale gold eyes track the torchlight, track the movement of Missandei's hands, track Ser Barristan Selmy's shifting stance. It did not behave like a creature newborn into confusion. It behaved like something that had been waiting, dreaming, and now, awake, was taking inventory of its world. Daenerys Targaryen reached into the brazier and lifted the hatchling gently. It was hotter than she expected, heat radiating through her palms, but it did not burn her. Its body was light, sinew and bone wrapped in living fire. It looked at her again, and for a moment she thought she saw recognition. Then its gaze slid away, as if something beyond the walls had called to it. Daenerys Targaryen frowned slightly. Outside, somewhere in the city, a distant scream cut the night. The hatchling's head snapped toward the sound. Its mouth opened, and a thin hiss of smoke curled out. No flame, not yet, but a promise. Daenerys Targaryen tightened her grip and felt, beneath her awe, the first whisper of fear. This dragon was hers, and yet it was not hers. Not in the simple way she wanted. Not in the way a lonely girl wanted anything in the world to belong to her. The Red Keep stones remembered everything. They remembered Aegon's fire. They remembered Maegor's blood. They remembered the soft tread of queens and the hard tread of executioners. They remembered Tyrion Lannister's laughter echoing in halls where men pretended not to see him. Tonight, the stones remembered a dwarf with a crossbow and a father's corpse cooling above. Tyrion Lannister stumbled in the dark, boots slipping in filth, breath coming in ragged bursts that tasted of sewage and iron. The tunnel was narrow enough that the walls brushed his shoulders. The air was thick, wet, alive with the scratching of rats and the distant drip of water. Somewhere overhead, King's Landing slept or pretended to. Ahead of him, Varys moved like a shadow. The eunuch's hood hid most of his pale face, but Tyrion Lannister could see the glint of his eyes when the lantern light caught them. Calm eyes, careful eyes, eyes that had watched 1,000 men die and had never once flinched. "You should be quieter," Varys murmured without looking back. "Noise carries." Tyrion Lannister barked a laugh that turned into a cough. "So does guilt," he rasped. His throat was raw from smoke, from shouting, from the moment he had spoken his father's name and heard it break like rotten wood. Varys did not answer. Varys rarely answered the questions that mattered. They reached a bend where the tunnel widened slightly. The smell worsened. Tyrion Lannister gagged, then swallowed bile. He had drunk too much wine in his life to be defeated by stink, but tonight his stomach churned with more than filth. Behind his eyes, Tywin Lannister still lay on the privy, mouth slack, eyes staring at nothing. Tyrion Lannister could still hear the thunk of the crossbow, the wet sound of bolts entering flesh. He could still see Shay's face, surprise, anger, betrayal, before it went blank. He had killed his father. He had killed the woman who had once warmed his bed and then warmed it for another. He had killed the last fragile hope that his life might be something other than mockery. Now he was fleeing like a thief. Varys paused at a rusted iron door half hidden behind a curtain of slime. He unlatched it with a key that looked too clean to belong here. "Through here," Varys said. Tyrion Lannister hesitated. He stared at the door as if it might bite. "Where does it lead?" he demanded. "To life," Varys replied softly. "If you are fortunate. And if I'm not?" Varys' mouth quirked in the faintest smile. Then it will lead to the same place all roads lead eventually. Tyrion Lannister shoved through the door. Cold night air slapped him in the face. For a moment he stood blinking, stunned by the sudden openness. He emerged into a narrow alley behind a tanner's shop, where the stench of piss and curing hides fought for dominance. Above, the Red Keep's towers loomed black against a moonless sky. In the distance, the Blackwater lay like a strip of ink. Tyrion Lannister drew in a breath deep. It tasted almost clean compared to the tunnel. He felt dizzy. His hands shook, not from cold but from the aftermath of violence. The crossbow felt heavier now, as if it had absorbed some of his soul. Varys stepped out behind him and closed the door. The key disappeared into his sleeve. "They will find him," Tyrion Lannister said suddenly. The words tore out of him. "They will find Tywin Lannister. They will know. They will know," Varys agreed. "And they will come for me." "They will come," Varys said, as if discussing the weather. Tyrion Lannister's laugh was bitter. "You speak of it like a game." Varys' eyes were pale in the starlight. "It is a game," he said softly. "A game that kills." Tyrion Lannister stared at him. "Why?" he demanded, voice rising. "Why help me? You could have left me in that cell. You could have watched me die and called it justice." Varys was silent for a moment. Then he said very quietly, "Because I have served too many kings who were unfit. Because I have seen what happens when a realm is ruled by cruelty and folly. Because I believe there is still a chance to build something better." Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. "And you think I am part of that better thing?" Varys' gaze held him. "I think you are clever," he said. "And I think cleverness is in short supply." Tyrion Lannister wanted to spit. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to collapse in the alley and let the rats gnaw his bones. Instead, he followed. They moved through King's Landing like ghosts, avoiding torchlit streets, slipping through shadows. Tyrion Lannister's mind swam with exhaustion and anger. Every corner felt like an ambush. Every distant shout felt like a bell tolling his death. At the riverfront, Varys led him to a small boat hidden among reeds. A man waited there, face obscured, hands rough as rope. He did not speak. He only gestured. Tyrion Lannister climbed in. The boat rocked, and for a moment he thought of the Blackwater burning green, of wildfire turning men into screaming torches. He gripped the side until his knuckles whitened. The boatman pushed off. The city's lights receded. Varys sat across from him, lantern covered now, face barely visible. The water lapped against the boat. Somewhere in the dark, a fish jumped, making Tyrion Lannister start like a frightened child. "Where are we going?" Tyrion Lannister asked at last. "Across the narrow sea," Varys replied. "To Pentos." Tyrion Lannister barked a laugh. "Pentos? Why in all the seven hells would I go to Pentos?" "Because there is a man there who will shelter you," Varys said. "A man who owes me favors. A man who has long dreamed of a certain restoration." Tyrion Lannister narrowed his eyes. "Restoration," he repeated. Varys' voice was calm. "The Targaryens." Tyrion Lannister's stomach lurched. "You are mad," he said. "Daenerys Targaryen is a girl in the east with savages at her back. Her brother is dead. Her cause is dead." Varys' pause was long enough to be deliberate. "Not dead," he said at last. "Awakened." Tyrion Lannister frowned. "What are you talking about?" Varys leaned forward slightly, and in the dark his whisper felt like a blade at Tyrion Lannister's throat. "Dragons," Varys said. The word hung between them, absurd and impossible. Tyrion Lannister almost laughed again. Dragons were stories. Dragons were painted on banners. Dragons were dead bones in the Red Keep cellars, brittle as old lies. "Dragons are dead," Tyrion Lannister said, though his voice lacked conviction. He remembered, suddenly, how the air had felt in the throne room when he was a child and his father brought him to see the skulls. Immense, hollow, teeth like swords. He remembered the way Tywin Lannister's hand had tightened on his shoulder. not in affection but in warning. Varys' eyes gleamed. "Not anymore," Varys said. Tyrion Lannister stared at him, and for the first time that night, something other than rage flickered in his chest. Not hope. Tyrion Lannister had murdered hope in a privy, but curiosity. Varys spoke of a girl walking into fire and emerging unburnt, of 3 eggs hatched into living monsters, of cities in Slaver's Bay that had bent their knees. Varys spoke quietly, as if the sea might be listening. Tyrion Lannister listened, and in spite of himself, he felt the world shift. If dragons were alive, then Tywin Lannister's iron certainty meant less. If dragons were alive, then the game was no longer played with knives alone. If dragons were alive, then perhaps even a dwarf who had killed his father might matter in a way that did not end in mockery. The boat rocked on a gentle swell. The wind off the sea was cold. Tyrion Lannister pulled his cloak tighter and stared out at the dark water. Somewhere ahead, Pentos waited, and beyond Pentos, a queen with fire in her veins. Tyrion Lannister did not know then that fire would one day look back at him and decide, in the silent way of beasts and destiny, that he belonged to it. Pentos greeted Tyrion Lannister with warmth and perfume, as if the city believed smell could erase sin. Illyrio Mopatis Manse was worse, a palace built out of indulgence. Marble floors cool beneath bare feet, curtains heavy with silk, statues of nude maidens carved so smoothly they looked alive. The air was thick with incense and roasting meat. Servants moved like practiced ghosts, refilling cups before they emptied, smoothing wrinkles that did not exist. Tyrion Lannister sat at a table that could have fed 20 men and wondered, with bleak amusement, how many men had died to buy this much comfort. Illyrio Mopatis reclined across from him, ringed fingers stained faintly purple from sweet wine. The Magister's cheeks were flushed with pleasure. His beard was oiled and curled. His eyes, bright and black, watched Tyrion Lannister like a man watching a coin toss he had already waited. "My poor friend," Illyrio Mopatis sighed, as if the world's cruelty personally offended him. "To think of you hunted, blamed for a boy king's death and a lord father's tragic end." He clucked his tongue. "Westeros is an ungrateful land." Tyrion Lannister lifted his goblet and drank. The wine was thick and spiced, meant to soothe. It did not. It only made his stomach hotter and his mind sharper in its bitterness. "Westeros is my land," Tyrion Lannister said. "Ungrateful or not, it has a way of clinging." Illyrio Mopatis spread his hands. "Then let it cling to memories," he said, "and let you cling to life." Tyrion Lannister snorted. "You speak like a priest." "A priest sells salvation," Illyrio Mopatis replied. "I sell opportunity, much more honest." Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked over the food. Capon stuffed with herbs, eels in sauce, bowls of olives and cheese, figs glazed with honey. It was obscene. In King's Landing, he had eaten well as hand, but even Tywin Lannister's table had been restrained compared to this. Illyrio Mopatis ate like a man determined to devour the world before it devoured him. "You have not told me why I am here," Tyrion Lannister said. Illyrio Mopatis' smile deepened. "Ah," he said, as if pleased by the question. He leaned forward, rings clinking softly. "Because you are clever. Because you are wronged. Because you have perspective." "Because Varys asked," Tyrion Lannister said bluntly. Illyrio Mopatis laughed, a rich sound. "Varys asks many things," he said. "Sometimes I grant them, sometimes I do not." Tyrion Lannister narrowed his eyes. "And this time," Illyrio Mopatis said, voice lowering, "our interests align." He gestured, and a servant slid a map onto the table. Parchment, expensive and crisp, inked with careful detail. Tyrion Lannister's gaze traced the familiar shape of Essos. The free cities like scattered jewels along the western coast, the wide green swath of the Rhoyne, the hook of the Valyrian Peninsula reaching south, and far to the east the red smear of Slaver's Bay. Illyrio Mopatis tapped a hick finger on a point near the bay. "Meereen," he said. Tyrion Lannister stared. You want me to go there, he said flatly. I want you to meet Daenerys Targaryen, Illyrio Mopatis corrected. And to help her. Tyrion Lannister's laugh was harsh. Help her? He echoed. Me? A Lannister? The last time a Targaryen sat the Iron Throne, my father helped take it from them. If she knows my name, she will feed me to her dragons. Illyrio Mopatis' eyes gleamed. Perhaps, he said, unbothered. But perhaps she will see that enemies can be useful too. Tyrion Lannister leaned back, feeling the chair's carved wood under his hands. And what do you get? He asked slowly. From sending me into the mouth of a dragon? Illyrio Mopatis spread his hands again. Friendship, he said. Alliance. A queen in Westeros who remembers who aided her when she was far away and beset. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted. You are a fat man who sells silk and secrets, he said. Do not pretend you care about queens. Illyrio Mopatis' smile did not falter, but his eyes sharpened. Silk and secrets build kingdoms, he said softly. And queens burn them down if you are careless. Tyrion Lannister felt a flicker of something then. Not quite fear, but recognition. Illyrio Mopatis was afraid. Not terrified like a man facing a sword, but afraid like a man who sees a storm coming and realizes his roof is made of straw. Varys told you the dragons were real, Tyrion Lannister said. Illyrio Mopatis nodded, almost reverent. Yes, and that changed your plans. Illyrio Mopatis chuckled. Plans are like pastries, he said. One must adjust them to the taste of the guests. Tyrion Lannister's gaze slid to the shadows near the doorway, where a servant girl stood too still. Her eyes were fixed on Illyrio Mopatis, and for a moment Tyrion Lannister saw something in them that did not belong to a servant. Calculation. Listening. A little bird, perhaps, or simply a girl who had learned that in rich houses, secrets were as valuable as coins. Tyrion Lannister looked back at Illyrio Mopatis. How? He asked. How do you propose to get me to Slaver's Bay? Every ship captain will want my head for the reward. Illyrio Mopatis lifted a goblet. You will travel disguised, he said, as a common man, a sellsword, a merchant's dwarf, something humble. Humble, Tyrion Lannister repeated, and the word tasted like poison. Illyrio Mopatis waved a hand. It is only for a time, he said, and you will not go alone. I have arranged companions. Tyrion Lannister's brows rose. Companions, he echoed. You mean guards? Illyrio Mopatis smiled. Friends, he insisted. Men of purpose. Men who, like you, are bound for the queen. Tyrion Lannister stared at the map again. Meereen was far. Beyond the Rhoyne, beyond Volantis, beyond lands where the old Valyrian roads still crumbled like bones. He imagined the journey. Weeks on water, weeks on river, weeks among strangers who might slit his tea. Wrote for sport, and at the end a queen with dragons. He should have refused. He should have demanded a ship to some quiet corner of the world where no one knew his name. He should have drunk himself to death in a Lysine brothel and called it victory. But Tyrion Lannister had never been good at surrender. What have you sent her? Tyrion Lannister asked suddenly. Illyrio Mopatis' eyes flickered. Sent her? You said your interests align, Tyrion Lannister said. You are not a man who gambles on one throw. If you want her friendship, you've already paid for it. Illyrio Mopatis' smile widened slightly. A gift, he admitted. Something meaningful. Tyrion Lannister's mind raced. Another dragon egg, he said, half jesting, half testing. For a heartbeat, Illyrio Mopatis' expression froze. It was only a fraction of a moment, but Tyrion Lannister saw it. The faint tightening around the eyes, the small swallow. Then Illyrio Mopatis laughed, loud and rich. You have imagination, he said. No, my friend. Nothing so absurd. Tyrion Lannister did not believe him. He watched Illyrio Mopatis pour more wine, and thought of the way men lied by drowning truth in sweetness. He thought of Varys' whispered certainty. He thought of dragons. What are their names? Tyrion Lannister asked, voice rough. Her dragons. Illyrio Mopatis' eyes softened, as if enjoying the story. Drogon, he said. Regal. Viserion. Named for her dead men. Dead men. Tyrion Lannister's mouth tightened. Names were ghosts made audible. He wondered what he would name his own dead. He lifted his goblet again, then set it down untouched. I will go, Tyrion Lannister said, surprising himself with how steady his voice was. Not for friendship, not for your schemes. I will go because I want to see a dragon before I die. Illyrio Mopatis' smile became almost tender. Then you will see more than that, he murmured. You will see the world remade. Tyrion Lannister stared at the map and felt, deep in his bones, that Illyrio Mopatis was right. The world was changing, and Tyrion Lannister, cursed, clever, hated, was being carried toward the heart of that change whether he wished it or not. The Rhoyne was a long, slow serpent, and the shy maid slid along its back like a pale parasite. Tyrion Lannister had been many things: hand of the king, prisoner, accused kinslayer, fugitive, but never a river traveler. The boats creak and sway unsettled him in ways he refused to admit. The river smelled of mud and lilies and old stone, and the air was damp enough to cling to skin like a second shirt. He sat on deck with a cup of thin wine, watching the world drift by in greens and grays. The banks were lined with reeds and willows, with villages that crouched low as if afraid of the sky. Sometimes they passed ruins, broken towers half swallowed by vines, statues toppled into the water. The Rhoyner had once built empires here, Illyrio Mopatis had said. Now the river ate their pride one crumbling brick at a time. Jon Connington stood near the rail, hood up despite the mild air. He watched the water as if it might rise and accuse him. His posture was rigid, his shoulders tight beneath his cloak. Tyrion Lannister had tried to speak to him the first day. Jon Connington had answered with curt politeness and then turned away as if conversation were a disease. Haldon Halfmester sat cross-legged with a book balanced on his knee, lips moving silently as he read. Septa Lemore moved about the deck with quiet competence, wringing out wet cloth, her robes clinging to her from the river's damp. She was handsome in a way that made men look twice and then pretend they hadn't. Tyrion Lannister had looked more than twice, not out of lust but out of curiosity. Septa Lemore had secrets in her posture, the careful way she kept her sleeves down, the way she avoided certain questions. And then there was young Griff. He trained with a wooden sword, striking at a post fixed to the deck. His movements were quick, impatient, more enthusiasm than skill. His hair had been dyed a muddy blue to disguise its true color, but the dye could not hide the shine entirely. When the light caught it, Tyrion Lannister saw silver beneath, like moonlight trapped under paint. Young Griff cursed when his sword slipped, then struck again with renewed fury. Tyrion Lannister watched him for a time, amused. The boy was handsome in the irritating way handsome boys often were. His jaw was too clean, his shoulders too straight. He had the restless energy of someone who had been told he was destined for something and could not bear to wait. Finally, Tyrion Lannister called out, "If you keep swinging like that, you will tire before you hit anything." Young Griff glared. "And what would you know of swords?" he snapped. Tyrion Lannister lifted his cup. "More than you," he said pleasantly. "I have watched men die by them, which is more education than most boys get." Young Griff's face flushed. "I am not a boy," he said. Tyrion Lannister's smile widened. "No," he agreed. "You are a prince." The words were bait. Young Griff's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. Jon Connington's head snapped, detoured them. Under his hood, his gaze was sharp as a drawn blade. "Enough," Jon Connington said. Young Griff's jaw tightened. He turned away, striking at the post harder than before. Tyrion Lannister leaned back against a barrel and took a sip of wine. Tasted like disappointment, but it warmed his throat. Haldon Halfmester glanced up from his book, eyes tired. "You should not provoke him," he said quietly. Tyrion Lannister shrugged. "He provokes himself," he said. "I merely provide a mirror." Septa Lemore approached, carrying a bundle of cloth. "You like mirrors," she said with faint amusement. "Most men prefer not to see their own faces." Tyrion Lannister barked a laugh. "Most men have faces worth seeing," he replied. Septa Lemor's eyes softened briefly. "And yours?" she asked. Tyrion Lannister's smile thinned. "Mine is useful," he said. "People look at it and remember what they think they know. They underestimate me. It is a gift." Septa Lemor studied him for a moment, then moved on without comment. The shy maid drifted beneath a stone arch where carved river gods stared down with blank eyes. Their faces were worn by time, their mouths eaten away by lichen. Tyrion Lannister felt a shiver despite the mild air. The river carried ghosts. As the day wore on, the sky darkened. Rain began as a fine mist, then thickened. The deck grew slick. Haldon Halfmester cursed softly as he hurried to protect his book. Young Griff kept training, stubborn, rain plastering the dyed hair to his forehead. Tyrion Lannister watched him and thought of kings. He thought of Joffrey Baratheon, a boy who had loved cruelty because it made him feel strong. He thought of Tommen Baratheon, too gentle for the throne that would crush him. He thought of Aerys Targaryen, mad with fire, and Robert Baratheon, drunk with victory and rot. And now, perhaps, this boy with silver hair hidden under dye, traveling in secrecy like contraband. A prince, Illyrio Mopatis, had hinted. A prince meant to claim Westeros. Tyrion Lannister did not know if he believed it, but he knew Illyrio Mopatis did not waste effort on fantasies. Illyrio Mopatis' schemes were fat with practicality. The river narrowed as they approached the Sorrows. The ruins rose on either side. Half-submerged buildings, broken bridges, moss-covered statues. The air grew colder, heavier. Mist clung to the water, turning the world into a blur of gray shapes. The crew grew quiet, oars dipping softly. Jon Connington's voice was low. "No singing," he warned. "No loud speech." Young Griff frowned. "Why?" he demanded. Haldon Halfmester's mouth tightened. "The Sorrows are not safe," he said. "Stone men linger here. Stone men. Grayscale." Tyrion Lannister had heard tales. Diseased wretches whose skin hardened like stone, whose minds rotted until they were animals. They haunted ruins, spreading their touch like a curse. Most stories were exaggerated. Most stories were not. The shy maid moved deeper into mist. The ruins pressed close like teeth. Tyrion Lannister felt his skin crawl. He scanned the gray shapes, trying to see movement that might not exist. A splash sounded to starboard. The oars paused. A sailor hissed a curse. Tyrion Lannister leaned forward, squinting. For a moment he saw nothing but mist and shadow. Then, near a broken wall half submerged, he saw a shape. A man, or what had been a man, clung to the stone. His skin was mottled gray and hard. His eyes were pale, unfocused. His mouth hung open, drooling into the river. Stone men. More shapes emerged, silent, slipping through water like corpses. Hands reached toward the boat, fingers stiff and clawed. Jon Connington drew his sword. "Back!" he barked. Young Griff froze, then lifted his wooden sword as if it were real. Septa Lemor's face went white. Haldon Halfmester clutched his book to his chest as if knowledge could shield him. Tyrion Lannister's heart hammered. He grabbed for a dagger at his belt, fingers slick with rain. The stone men surged. One caught the rail, hauling itself up with horrifying strength. Another splashed at the side, clawing at the hull. A sailor screamed as a gray hand latched onto his ankle. Chaos erupted. Swords flashed, oars swung like clubs. Voices shouted and broke into panic. Tyrion Lannister stabbed at a gray hand, felt his blade scrape stone. The stone man hissed, more animal than human. It lunged toward him, mouth open. Tyrion Lannister stumbled back, slipping on the wet deck. For a heartbeat, he saw his own death. Hands of stone closing on his throat, the curse crawling into him. Then Jon Connington was there, driving steel through the creature's chest. The stone man fell back into the river with a splash, vanishing into mist. "Keep moving," Jon Connington roared. "Row!" The crew fought and rowed, muscle straining. The Shy Maid lurched forward, breaking through grasping hands. Stone men clung to the sides, screeching, until oars and swords knocked them free. Tyrion Lannister's breath came in gasps. His hands shook. Rain ran down his face like tears he refused to shed. As the boat surged out of the worst of the ruins, the mist began to thin. The river widened again. The ruins receded behind them like a nightmare fading with waking. The crew collapsed in exhausted silence. One sailor sobbed quietly, clutching his arm where a gray hand had grazed him. Septa Lemore moved to tend him, hands steady despite her pale face. Young Griff stood stiff, eyes wide, wooden sword hanging uselessly at his side. He looked suddenly young, suddenly fragile. Tyrion Lannister wiped rain from his face and laughed, a harsh sound that startled even him. Haldon Halfmester looked at him sharply. "What is funny?" he demanded. Tyrion Lannister shook his head, still laughing. "We run from stone men," he said, voice cracked with hysteria. "We run from ghosts and curses and old ruins. And somewhere in the world, a girl rides living fire." Jon Connington's gaze snapped to him. "What do you mean?" he demanded. Tyrion Lannister lifted his cup, somehow still in his hand, and drank the last of the thin wine. "Dragons," he said simply. The word hung in the damp air. Young Griff's eyes fixed on Tyrion Lannister, hungry and wary. "You've seen them?" he asked. "No," Tyrion Lannister said. "But I will." Jon Connington's jaw clenched. He turned away, staring at the river as if it could drown secrets. Tyrion Lannister leaned back against the barrel again, rain washing the deck clean of filth and blood. His mind spun with images. Dragons over deserts, fire over cities, stone men clinging to ruins like the past refusing to die. The world was full of monsters, Tyrion Lannister thought. Perhaps it always had been. Perhaps the difference now was that one of them wore a crown. It was Jorah Mormont who finally cut Tyrion Lannister out of Illyrio Mopatis' careful plans. Not with kindness, with hands like iron. Tyrion Lannister woke to pain and darkness and the taste of river water in his mouth. His head throbbed as if a smith had been hammering inside his skull. When he tried to sit up, a fist slammed into his chest and drove the air from him. "Stay down," a voice growled. Tyrion Lannister blinked, eyes adjusting. He lay on the deck of a different boat now, smaller, rougher, stinking of fish and sweat. The Shy Maid was gone. The river's gentle drift had been traded for the hard slap of waves against hull. Jorah Mormont loomed over him, face shadowed by a beard, eyes dark with something between anger and desperation. He was taller than most men, broad-shouldered, with the look of a bear that had been hunted too long and had decided to bite back. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twisted.
"Ser Jorah, Errasped."
"Or should I call you kidnapper?" Jorah Mormont ignored the jibe. He grabbed Tyrion Lannister by the collar and hauled him up like a sack of grain. Tyrion Lannister's feet slipped on the wet deck. "You belong to me now," Jorah Mormont said, voice low, "and you will help me get back to her." "Her?" Tyrion Lannister echoed, tasting amusement despite the pain. "Daenerys Targaryen." Jorah Mormont's grip tightened. "Do not speak her name as if you know it." "I know stories," Tyrion Lannister said. His tongue felt thick. "And I know desperate men when I see them." Jorah Mormont's eyes flashed. "You will come with me," he said, "to Meereen. You will convince her to pardon me. You will tell her you are useful." Tyrion Lannister laughed weakly. "I am useful," he said, "but you are a fool if you think Daenerys Targaryen will pardon you because I ask nicely." Jorah Mormont's face twisted with pain. For a moment, Tyrion Lannister saw the man beneath the beard and anger. A knight who had loved too hard and betrayed too often. A man who had been exiled, shamed, and then found something to worship and ruined it. "I will do whatever I must," Jorah Mormont said, voice rough. "I will crawl. I will beg. I will bring her gifts." "Gifts," Tyrion Lannister repeated, and something in his gut tightened. Jorah Mormont did not answer. He shoved Tyrion Lannister toward the cabin. Chains clinked, a sound Tyrion Lannister knew too well. Iron bit into his wrists as Jorah Mormont snapped manacles closed. Tyrion Lannister stared at the chains and felt a bitter laugh rise. Even across the world, even fleeing kings and fathers, he found himself in chains again. Some jokes were so cruel they circled back into comedy. They reached Volantis days later. The city rose from the river like a beast made of brick and arrogance. The long bridge spanned the water, crowded with merchants, soldiers, slaves, banners snapping above them. Tigers' banners, elephants' banners, factions that played at politics while the old blood pretended they were still masters of the world. The air smelled of incense and sweat and river rot. The noise was constant. Shouting in a dozen tongues, the clang of chains, the chant of priests. Jorah Mormont dragged Tyrion Lannister through the docks, ignoring the stares. Men saw a dwarf in chains and smiled with ugly curiosity. A slaver called out a price. A woman spat. Tyrion Lannister stumbled, wrists aching, but he kept his chin lifted. Pride was sometimes the only armor left. Near the steps leading up toward the Red Temple, priests in scarlet robes stood in rows, faces lifted, eyes burning with fervor. Their chant rolled over the crowd like heat. A red priest stepped forward, dark-skinned with eyes that gleamed as if lit from within. He looked at Tyrion Lannister and smiled. Not a kind smile, but a knowing one. "The little lion walks east," the red priest said, voice carrying over the noise. "The fire has woken. The world turns." Tyrion Lannister's stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. The red priest's gaze flicked to the horizon, toward where the sun rose over water. "For flames," he murmured. "For wings. The dragon queen gathers what was lost." Jorah Mormont jerked Tyrion Lannister forward, as if to tear him from the priest's words. "Keep your mouth shut," Jorah Mormont growled. Tyrion Lannister craned his head back, watching the red priest's smile fade into something almost pitying. For flames, Tyrion Lannister thought. He remembered Illyrio Mopatis' momentary hesitation. He remembered the way the world seemed to hold its breath when Varys spoke of dragons. He remembered the impossible shadow Daenerys Targaryen had seen at dawn over Meereen. For he did not know why the number made his skin prickle, but it did. They did not stay in Volantis. Jorah Mormont had no patience for lingering. He sold what he could, stole what he could not, and forced Tyrion Lannister aboard a ship bound south and east, toward the long curve of the world and the bay where a queen fought to hold a city that hated her. The ship was a slaver's vessel, though Jorah Mormont did not call it that. It carried chained men in the hold, brown-skinned, hollow-eyed, branded. It carried barrels of grain and wine and weapons. It carried whispered rumors like rats in the walls, of war in Slaver's Bay, of plague, of dragons. Tyrion Lannister lay on rough planks at night, wrists raw in chains, listening to the creak of the ship and the soft sobs of men below. He had once told himself that slavery was a distant evil, a thing of other lands. Now it was beneath his feet, breathing. In the dark, he thought of the Red Keep's tunnels and their stink, and realized the world was full of tunnels. Some were stone, some were made of law and custom, some were made of chains. He slept poorly. He dreamed of fire. Not the green fire of wildfire, but red gold, living. He dreamed of a dragon egg in a brazier, veins of amethyst glowing. He dreamed of pale gold eyes opening and looking past a queen. Sometimes, in the dream, those eyes looked at him. He would wake sweating, heart racing, and laugh softly at himself. A dwarf in chains dreaming of dragons. The gods had a sense of humor after all. As the ship rounded the smoking curve of old Valyria, skirting it, never daring to draw too near, the air tasted faintly of ash. The sailors crossed themselves and muttered prayers. Even Jorah Mormont looked uneasy. Tyrion Lannister stared at the horizon, where the sun sank into haze, and wondered what it meant that the world's old wounds still smoked. Perhaps dragons were not the only things that never truly died. Meereen stank of war. Even before Tyrion Lannister saw its walls, he smelled it. Smoke from siege fires, the sour tang of fear, the sweet rot of too many bodies piled too close. The bay was crowded with ships, some flying slavers' banners, some flying none at all. Beyond them, the great multicolored brick walls rose, patched and scarred. Catapults stood like hunched beasts on the earthworks outside the gates. Tents spread across the plain in dirty white and brown, an army's rash. Jorah Mormont dragged Tyrion Lannister through it all. They did not arrive as conquerors or honored guests. They arrived like scavengers. Jorah Mormont traded words with Sellswords, slipped coin to men with sharp eyes, avoided the slavers' patrols by walking among them as if he belonged. At some point in the chaos, Tyrion Lannister's chains were removed, not out of mercy, but because Jorah Mormont needed him to look less like property. Jorah Mormont still kept a knife close, and his hand on Tyrion Lannister's shoulder felt like a collar. They entered the city through a gate that smelled of old blood. Inside, Meereen was a maze of narrow streets and towering pyramids. Freedmen stared with wary eyes. Masters hid behind shutters. Unsullied marched in disciplined lines, faces blank, spears upright. Tyrion Lannister felt the weight of the city's hatred. Meereen hated its conqueror. Meereen hated its chains broken. Meereen hated its own fear, and somewhere above all of it sat Daenerys Targaryen. They were stopped by Unsullied near the base of the Great Pyramid. Grey Worm himself. Tyrion Lannister recognized him from stories because the world loved naming its weapons, stepped forward. His face was expressionless, but his eyes were not empty. They measured. Jorah Mormont dropped to one knee immediately, as if his bones had been trained. "Grey Worm," he said, voice rough, "I have come to see my queen." Grey Worm's gaze flicked over him, then to Tyrion Lannister. "You are the exile," Grey Worm said. Jorah Mormont bowed his head. "Yes," he said, "I have brought a gift." Grey Worm's eyes narrowed. "Gifts have brought us death," he said. Tyrion Lannister's mouth twitched. He wanted to speak, but he held his tongue. He had learned, painfully, that sometimes silence was more useful than cleverness, though he resented the lesson. Grey Worm ordered them taken inside. The Great Pyramid's interior was cool compared to the city's heat, but the coolness felt like a tomb. Corridors wound upward, lit by torches that painted harpies on the walls. The air smelled of stone and smoke and something else. Something sharp, metallic, like hot iron quenched in blood. Tyrion Lannister's skin prickled. They were brought into the audience hall. Daenerys Targaryen stood, not seated. She wore a simple white gown, but a red cloak hung over her shoulders like spilled blood. Her hair was braided in intricate loops, threaded with bronze bells that chimed softly when she moved. Her face was young Oh, young for the hard set of her mouth, for the coldness in her eyes. She looked at Jorah Mormont first, and Tyrion Lannister felt the room tighten. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. "Ser Jorah Mormont," Daenerys Targaryen said, voice steady. "You have returned." Jorah Mormont bowed his head so low his beard brushed the floor. "My queen," he rasped, "I have come to beg forgiveness. I have come to serve you." Daenerys Targaryen's eyes did not soften. "You betrayed me," she said. "You spied on me. You sold my trust for a pardon." Jorah Mormont swallowed. "Yes," he said, "and I have paid. I have been exiled. I have been shamed. I have been empty. Please." Daenerys Targaryen's gaze shifted to Tyrion Lannister, and Tyrion Lannister felt irrationally, as if a dragon had looked at him. Her eyes were a deep, dark violet, unusual, unsettling. They held anger and exhaustion and something like hunger. "And you," Daenerys Targaryen said, "who are you?" Tyrion Lannister bowed with as much grace as his bruised body allowed. "Tyrion Lannister," he said, "at your service, though I suspect you would prefer me at your mercy." A murmur rippled through the hall. The name meant something even here. In Essos, gold and cruelty traveled faster than ships. Skahaz Emo Kandak, the shave pate, stepped forward, bronze mask gleaming. "A Lannister," Skahaz Emo Kandak said, voice muffled and pleased. Cut him. He will bleed lies. Ser Barristan Selmy's hand went to his sword hilt. He is unarmed, Ser Barristan Selmy said, and under your roof. Let him speak. Daenerys Targaryen lifted a hand. Silence fell. Tyrion Lannister met her gaze and forced himself not to flinch. This was not Cersei Lannister's cold fury, nor Tywin Lannister's contempt. This was something different. A woman who had survived by becoming hard, and who knew the cost of hardness. You stand in my hall, Daenerys Targaryen said. A Lannister. Why should I not have you killed? Tyrion Lannister's smile was thin. Because if you kill me, he said, you will still have the same enemies. You will still have the same war. You will simply have one less useful mind. Daenerys Targaryen's eyes narrowed. Useful, she echoed. Yes, Tyrion Lannister said. I have spent my life surrounded by men who thought themselves clever. I have watched them make the same mistakes because pride blinded them. I have made mistakes too. But I have survived them. Daenerys Targaryen's mouth tightened. Survived by killing your father, she said softly. The words struck like a slap. Tyrion Lannister felt heat rise in his face. Anger and shame tangled. He forced his voice steady. Yes, he said. And by being blamed for killing a king I did not kill. Daenerys Targaryen studied him, expression unreadable. Beside her, Missandei watched with worried eyes, fingers clasped tight. Ser Barristan Selmy's gaze was sharp, as if weighing Tyrion Lannister's words against the world's rumors. And what do you want, Daenerys? Targaryen asked at last. Tyrion Lannister let out a slow breath. I want to live, he said honestly, and I want to see Westeros change. I have watched men like my father rule by fear and call it order. I have watched boy kings die because no one taught them mercy. I have watched my sister turn the realm into a knife fight. I believe you could do better. Daenerys Targaryen's eyes flickered. Better? She repeated, and there was something almost bitter in it. Meereen does not want better. Meereen wants me dead. Tyrion Lannister spread his hands. Then make Meereen want to live, he said. Or leave it and take your fire to Westeros.
Skahats Montag Kandak hisset.
He speaks too freely, he said. Cut him. Daenerys Targaryen ignored him. You speak of leaving as if it is simple, she said. It is not simple, Tyrion Lannister agreed. But dragons make many things simpler. At the word dragons, the air shifted. From deep below, a low rumble rose. A sound like distant thunder trapped in stone. The hall's torches flickered. Daenerys Targaryen's eyes tightened. You have heard rumors, she said. I have heard more than rumors, Tyrion Lannister said. He hesitated, then decided that truth, like a knife, was most useful when thrust quickly. I have heard there are 4. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush. Missandei's eyes widened.
Ser Barristan Selmy Stifened.
Skahaz Emo Kandak's bronze mask caught torchlight, making him look like a gleaming predator. Daenerys Targaryen's face did not change, but Tyrion Lannister saw something flicker in her eyes. Shock, anger, fear. A crack in the queen. Who told you that? Daenerys Targaryen demanded. Tyrion Lannister shrugged, forcing nonchalance. The world whispers, he said, and I listen. Daenerys Targaryen stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to Grey Worm, who stood rigid near the hall's entrance. Take Ser Jorah Mormont to a cell, Daenerys Targaryen said. He will wait for my judgment. Jorah Mormont's face crumpled. My queen! Silence! Daenerys Targaryen snapped, and the word cut like a whip. Grey Worm gestured. Unsullied seized Jorah Mormont and dragged him away. Jorah Mormont's eyes met Tyrion Lannister's for a brief moment. Pleading, furious, desperate. Then he was gone. Daenerys Targaryen faced Tyrion Lannister again. And you, she said, you will come with me. Tyrion Lannister blinked. To where? He asked. Daenerys Targaryen's gaze was flat. To see the thing you claim to know, she said. To look upon my dragons and remember why you should fear me. Tyrion Lannister's mouth went dry. He had wanted to see a dragon. He had wanted it in the abstract as a story made flesh. Now he was being led toward the heart of the pyramid, toward the chains and darkness where fire breathed. As Unsullied closed in around him, spears glinting, Tyrion Lannister felt the metallic scent sharpen. Hot iron quenched in blood. And beneath it, something else. A faint SW. Neatness like smoke drifting over flowers. The stairs down were steep and narrow, carved into the pyramid's belly like a wound. The air grew hotter with each step. The torches smoked, their flames bending strangely as if the air itself were reluctant. Tyrion Lannister descended between unsullied spears, his footsteps echoing. Daenerys Targaryen followed behind them, silent. The soft chime of her bells, the only delicate sound in the stone throat of the pyramid. Ser Barristan Selmy walked at her side, torch held high, white hair catching orange light. The deeper they went, the more the smell thickened. Smoke, sweat, old blood, and that sharp metallic tang Tyrion Lannister could not place until he realized it reminded him of a forge. Hot iron, the scent of power being made. At the bottom, a heavy door stood reinforced with iron bands. The stone around it was blackened, scorched. Deep grooves marred the floor where something enormous had clawed and thrashed. Grey Worm gestured. Two Unsullied pushed the door open with effort. Heat rolled out like a beast. The dragon pit was vast, a cavern carved beneath the pyramid, its ceiling lost in darkness. Chains crisscrossed the space like a spider's web, thick as a man's arm, bolted into stone. The floor was littered with bones, goat, sheep, something larger. Old scorch marks patterned the walls, and in the dark, eyes opened. Gold, green, pale. Viserion's eyes burned like coins in a skull. Regal's were darker like green glass. Their bodies moved, massive shapes shifting, chains clanking with angry weight. The sound vibrated in Tyrion Lannister's chest, making his bones hum. A low growl rose, deep enough to be felt rather than heard. Tyrion Lannister's mouth went dry. He had seen dragon skulls in the Red Keep, yes. He had mocked them, yes. But skulls were dead. They did not breathe. They did not watch. These watched. Daenerys Targaryen's voice came from behind him, cold and controlled. "Look," she said. "Look and remember what you face when you speak to me." Tyrion Lannister swallowed. "I am looking," he managed. Regal lunged forward as far as his chains allowed, jaws snapping. Hot breath blasted across the cavern, carrying the stink of meat and smoke. Tyrion Lannister flinched despite himself. Viserion lifted his head and hissed, smoke curling from his nostrils. The sound was like a storm trapped in a throat. Ser Barristan Selmy raised the torch higher. Its light licked across scales, green and bronze, cream and gold, making them shimmer like armor made of gems. And then Tyrion Lannister saw the fourth. At first he thought it was a trick of shadow, a smaller shape near the far wall, half hidden behind chains. It did not thrash or roar. It simply watched, eyes pale gold, almost white, reflecting torchlight with eerie clarity. It moved forward slowly, silently, claws clicking softly on stone. Its scales were ash pale, shifting in color where light touched them. Along its spine, small ridges the color of bruised amethyst caught the two. RCH glow. Its wings were folded tight, but the membranes shimmered with faint gold flecks like dusted sunlight. It was not large, still young, a fraction of its chained sibling size, but there was something in its movement that made Tyrion Lannister's skin prickle. It moved like a creature that knew what it was doing. Daenerys Targaryen's breath hitched. "Visenya," she said softly, and for the first time her voice held something like wonder and something like unease. "Visenya." Tyrion Lannister's mind supplied the history. Visenya Targaryen, sister-wife of Aegon the Conqueror, rider of Vhagar, the warrior queen. The name was not chosen lightly. The small dragon approached Tyrion Lannister. Unsullied spears shifted, points angling. Grey Worm stepped forward, voice sharp. "Stay back," he commanded. though Tyrion Lannister could not tell if he spoke to the dragon or to Tyrion Lannister. Visenya ignored him, the dragon's pale gold eyes fixed on Tyrion Lannister's face. It tilted its head, almost like a curious bird. It tasted the air with a forked tongue, then stepped closer. Tyrion Lannister's heart hammered so hard it hurt. His hands wanted to shake, but he forced them still. Fear was not something he could afford to show. Fear, he had learned, was blood in the water. He took one slow step forward. Daenerys Targaryen's voice snapped. "Do not." Tyrion Lannister did not look back. "If you want me to fear you," he said, voice low, "let me see how you handle fear." He extended his hand. It was a foolish gesture, a child's gesture, a gesture made by someone who had no right to think he could touch fire and not be burned. Visenya approached until its snout was inches from his fingers. Tyrion Lannister could feel the heat radiating off it, could smell smoke and something faintly sweet beneath. The dragon blinked slowly. Then, with a deliberate motion, Visenya pressed its forehead against Tyrion Lannister's outstretched hand. The contact was hot and solid. The scales were smooth, tougher than leather. Heat pulsed through Tyrion Lannister's palm, not burning but entering, as if the dragon were pouring warmth into him. Tyrion Lannister froze. Behind him, he heard Daenerys Targaryen inhale sharply. Ser Barristan Selmy's torch hand trembled. Rhaegal snarled, chains clanking as if he wanted to lunge. Viserion hissed, smoke thickening. Visenya did not flinch. It held its forehead to Tyrion Lannister's hand like a cat pressing into a touch, claiming it. Tyrion Lannister's mind raced. This was impossible. Dragons did not do this. Dragons were weapons, not pets. Dragons were fire made flesh, not creatures that sought comfort. And yet, he felt something then, not a thought exactly, but a sensation, a pressure behind his eyes, a faint hum in his bones, like music too low to hear. He swallowed, throat tight, and without thinking, words slipped out. High Valyrian, broken but earnest, pulled from old lessons and old books and old dreams. Zaldri.
Zesh, Tyrion Lannister whispered.
Dragons. Visenya's eyes narrowed slightly, as if focusing. Tyrion Lannister's breath caught. He tried again, voice trembling despite himself. "SYZ, he said. Come." Visenya's head tilted. Tyrion Lannister's lips parted. The next word came out softer, more intimate, the kind of word a man might use to calm a frightened animal. "Matzis," he murmured. "Be calm." Visenya made a sound. Low, not a roar, but a rumble that vibrated through Tyrion Lannister's hand into his arm. Felt like approval, or understanding, or perhaps Tyrion Lannister's mind, desperate to make sense, was inventing meaning. Daenerys Targaryen's voice was tight. "How do you know that tongue?" she demanded. Tyrion Lannister did not look away from Visenya. "I read," he said. "Sometimes reading keeps you alive." Visenya's tongue flicked out and tasted Tyrion Lannister's fingers. The touch was rough and hot. Tyrion Lannister stifled a flinch. He tasted metal, his own blood. He had not realized his hand had been scraped on the way down, that a small cut had opened. Visenya tasted it, then pressed closer. Daenerys Targaryen took a step forward, anger flaring. "Enough," she said.
Visenya, come."
Visenya did not move. Daenerys Targaryen's eyes widened, a crack of disbelief. She spoke again, sharper, in High Valyrian, words that carried command like a whip. Visenya blinked, slow, and did not obey. Tyrion Lannister felt the air in the cavern tighten like a drawn bow. The Unsullied shifted, spears wavering. Ser Barristan Selmy's face was pale. Grey Worm's jaw clenched. Daenerys Targaryen stood very still, staring at her dragon as if she had been struck. Tyrion Lannister's mouth felt too dry to speak. He wanted to say something clever, something that would turn this into words and therefore into something he could control. But there were no clever words for a dragon's choice. Visenya moved again, stepping closer to the chains, as if marking territory. Rhaegal hissed and strained, but his chains held. Viserion's eyes burned. watching Tyrion Lannister with something like resentment. Daenerys Targaryen's hands clenched at her sides. "You came here to see dragons," she said, voice tight. "You have seen them." Tyrion Lannister managed a shaky nod. "Remember?" Daenerys Targaryen continued, each word controlled with effort, "that dragons are mine." Tyrion Lannister looked at Visenya. The small dragon's gaze met his, calm and pale. He did not know if dragons could be owned. He did not know if Daenerys Targaryen knew either. As they turned to leave the pit, the torches throwing dancing shadows, Tyrion Lannister felt Visenya's gaze follow him up the stairs like the touch of a hand he could not shake off. Behind them, in the deep dark under the pyramid, chained dragons rumbled like thunder. And in the silence between those rumbles, Tyrion Lannister understood something with cold clarity. If fire could choose him, then the world's old rules were ready burning. The door boomed shut, and the sound rolled through the chamber like the closing of a tomb. Daenerys Targaryen stood over the table where Meereen had been reduced to lines scratched on parchment and little bronze shapes. Harpies for pyramids, spears for patrols, a ring of crude tents to mark the besiegers. The torches made the bronze gleam as if it were molten. Her fingers hovered above the map without touching. She felt as though the moment she placed her hand down, she would admit that the city could be held or lost by pressure of her palm. "Tell me again," she said, and her voice did not shake, though something inside her did. "Exactly what you saw." Ser Barristan Selmy's jaw worked as if he were chewing on words too bitter to swallow. "I saw the dragon approach him," he said, "not as a beast approaches meat, as a hawk approaches a known glove." Skahaz Mo Kandak made a sound that might have been laughter behind bronze. "A glove," he said, "or a leash." Daenerys's gaze snapped to him. "If you have something useful, say it." The Shave Pate bowed his shaved head a fraction, all mock humility. "It is useful to know when a man is a danger," he said. "This man is a danger, a Lannister in your hall, touched by your dragon. Kill him now, before he grows more dangerous." Tyrion Lannister, held near the wall between two unsullied, lifted his chin. "The touching was mutual," he said lightly. "I am flattered you noticed." Grey Worm's spear shifted a hair closer to Tyrion's ribs. Daenerys did not look at Tyrion. She kept her eyes on the map, because the alternative was to look at the pale gold eyes perched above him and feel her own authority slipping like sand through her fingers. "You will hold your tongue," she said. Tyrion's mouth curved. "As you command, your grace," he said, and the courtesy sounded too practiced to be safe. Missandei stepped closer to Daenerys, her small hands twisting together. "Your grace," she said softly. "He did not threaten you." Daenerys turned, and in that instant the girl flinched as if struck. Missandei's loyalty was a warm thing in this cold city. Daenerys hated herself for the way anger made her want to crush even warmth. "He did not threaten me," Daenerys repeated, tasting the words. "And yet my dragon chose him." No one spoke for a heartbeat. The torches crackled. Somewhere deep in the pyramid, a chain rasped against stone. Ser Barristan Selmy cleared his throat. "Your grace," he said carefully. "Dragons are willful. Even in the old days they were not horses. They were not dogs. They were ridden," Daenerys said. "Yes," Ser Barristan Selmy agreed, "but not by command alone. There were men, dragon seeds they were called, who took to dragons without being of the royal line. Some did. Some died screaming." Skahaz Mo Kandak's bronze mask turned toward Tyrion like a predator scenting blood. "So this one should die screaming," he said. Daenerys's nails bit into her palm. "No," she said, and the word came, out sharper than she intended. Startled even her because she realized she meant it. Not because she cared if Tyrion Lannister lived. She did not. The Lannister name tasted of ashes and broken oaths, of the sack of King's Landing, of a murdered family she had never met and yet had carried like a scar since birth. She meant it because she had felt the way Visenya's attention had moved, like the turning of a blade, clean and decisive. If Daenerys struck at Tyrion now, she did not know what the dragon would do. She did not know what any of her dragons would do. And a queen who did not know what her weapons would do was a queen standing naked before a storm. "You will not touch him," Daenerys told the Shave Pate, and saw the frustration tighten his shoulders. Skahaz Mo Kandak bowed again. "As my queen commands," he said, the words soft, the intent not. Daenerys turned to Grey Worm. "He will be kept under guard," she said. "Not in a cell like a common thief. He is a guest until I decide otherwise. But he will not leave the pyramid. He will not speak to anyone without permission. If he tries to flee, you may break his legs." Grey Worm's face did not change. "Yes, your grace." Tyrion Lannister's brows rose. "A compromise," he murmured. "I can live with that. Perhaps not walk, but live." Daenerys finally looked at him. His face was bruised, his hair a tangle, his clothes stained with travel and sweat. And yet his eyes were clear, amused, measuring, the eyes of a man who had been cornered his whole life and had learned to turn corners into weapons. "What are you?" Daenerys asked quietly. "Tell me true." Tyrion's smile faded into something more honest, or at least more careful. "A man," he said. "A monster, if you prefer. A fool who believed his father's love might be earned. A kinslayer if you listen to the singers. A tool if you listen to Varys." At Varys's name, Skahaz Mo Kandak stiffened. Missandei's eyes widened. Daenerys's jaw tightened. "You will speak to me again," she said. "In private." Tyrion bowed his head. "I live for private conversations with queens." Above him, Visenya shifted, talons scraping stone. The sound was small, but it set Daenerys' teeth on edge. The dragon's pale gold gaze moved from Tyrion to Daenerys, lingering. Not afraid, not submissive, simply aware. Daenerys felt suddenly as if she were the one being examined. She turned away sharply. "Get him out of my sight," she said. As the Unsullied guided Tyrion toward the door, Visenya did not leap down, did not follow. It only watched him leave, head tilted, as if the room had become less interesting when he moved away. Daenerys stayed by the map, staring at bronze pieces that no longer felt like toys. For the first time since she had walked unburnt from Drogo's pyre, she felt a fear that did not come from enemies or knives. It came from within her own fire. Daenerys kept the room small on purpose. In Meereen, every large space filled with echoes, of old masters, of petitions, of lies spoken loudly so they sounded like truth. Here the walls were close, the lamps low, the air scented with resin to mask the pyramid's old stone breath. A brazier glowed softly by the window, and beyond the carved screens the city's noise came muffled, like distant surf. Tyrion Lannister sat on a low stool with his hands open on his knees. Missandei had insisted he be washed, and the grime of travel had been scrubbed away, leaving pale skin and bruises more visible. He wore a plain dark tunic provided by the palace. It fit him better than his torn clothes had, which irritated Daenerys in a way she did not want to name. Even cleaned, even made ordinary, he refused to look small. Ser Barristan Selmy stood near the wall, close enough to cut Tyrion down if he moved wrong. Daenerys trusted Ser Barristan's sword the way she trusted walls, imperfect, but necessary. Visenya crouched on the window ledge like a carved idol, rain dripping from the stones outside onto its ash-pale scales. The dragon did not blink often. When it did, it was slow, unhurried, as if blinking were a choice made for a reason. Daenerys stood opposite Tyrion, arms folded, her red cloak pooled behind her like spilled blood. "Speak," she said. Tyrion's mouth quirked. "About what?" he asked. "My many virtues? My many crimes? The delightful way your dragon pressed its skull into my hand." Daenerys' eyes narrowed. "Do not mock me." Tyrion's smile faded. "Then do not ask me to pretend I'm not frightened," he said quietly. "I can mock my fear or I can drown in it. I have found mockery keeps me alive." Missandei's gaze flicked between them, anxious. Daenerys forced herself to breathe. "Why did you come here?" she demanded. "Do not tell me you were blown in by a storm." Tyrion leaned back a fraction. as if the stool were a throne and he could afford comfort. "I was carried," he said, "by Varys, by Illyrio Mopatis, by Ser Jorah Mormont, who is very strong and very stupid when he believes he is owed something." At Jorah's name, Daenerys felt a familiar sting. Betrayal mixed with old affection she hated for surviving. She kept her face still. "You were a prisoner," she said. "A slave." Tyrion's eyes flicked down to his wrists as if he could still feel iron. "A guest," he said dryly. "In Volantis they call it a gift." Daenerys's mouth tightened. "And now you are my guest." Tyrion dipped his head. "Your hospitality is legendary." Daenerys stepped closer, letting her shadow fall over him. "If you came to poison me," she said, "you will die. If you came to spy, you will die. If you came to turn my people against me, I came to survive," Tyrion interrupted, and the bluntness of it cut through her rehearsed threats. "And because if dragons are alive, then everything my father believed about power is wrong. I wanted to see that with my own eyes." Daenerys' fingers tightened on her own arms. "You saw," she said, "and yet you do not tremble enough." Tyrion looked up at her, and for a heartbeat Daenerys saw something raw behind the cleverness. Weariness. A man hollowed by hatred and wine and the knowledge that he had killed the one person he had once believed could not be killed. "I tremble," Tyrion said softly. "Inside. Outside I learned to keep still because if you flinch first, the world thinks it has permission to strike you again." Missandei inhaled sharply as if the words struck her. Ser Barristan Selmy's gaze tightened, sympathetic despite himself. Daenerys swallowed. She had expected arrogance. She had expected lies. She had expected a Lannister's cold, bright cruelty. Instead, she found a man who spoke like someone who understood cages. "What do you know of Westeros?" Daenerys demanded, seizing the safer ground of politics. "Of my enemies, of the usurper's brothers, of the Lion Queen." Tyrion's mouth curved at the phrase Lion Queen. "Cersei Lannister," he said. "My sister. She will be very unhappy to hear I am alive. That may be the first gift I have ever given you without meaning to." "Answer," Daenerys said. Tyrion's eyes sharpened, the way a knife's edge catches light. He began to speak, and as he spoke Daenerys felt the shape of Westeros rising between them. Great houses like beasts, alliances like spiderwebs, weakness masked as strength. He spoke of the boy King Tommen, gentle and easily guided, and of Cersei's hunger to rule even if she burned the realm to do it. He spoke of the Tyrells and their roses hiding thorns, of Dorne's patient anger, of the Ironborn's storms. He spoke as if he were laying pieces on a board. Daenerys listened, and in spite of herself she felt the pull of usefulness. The man was poison, perhaps, but he was a poison that could kill other poisons. When he paused to drink from the cup of water Missandei offered, Daenerys' gaze flicked to Visenya. The dragon was watching Tyrion as if the words were food. Daenerys felt irritation flare, sharp and ugly. "Visenya," she said, and her voice was a command she had used on armies. "Go." Visenya did not move. Daenerys took a step toward the window. "Go," she repeated, sharper. Visenya blinked once, slow as sunrise, and stayed. Tyrion watched the exchange, and his mouth tightened. Not with triumph, but with something like caution. "She listens," he said carefully, "but not always the way you want." Daenerys whirled on him. "Do not presume to tell me how my dragon listens." Tyrion held up his hands, palms open. "Then tell me," he said softly, "why she's here." Daenerys had no answer that did not taste like failure. She forced her voice steady. "I will use you," she said. "If you are useful, you will advise me on Westeros, on war, on the lions and roses and snakes waiting there." Tyrion nodded once. "Gladly," he said. "It will feel familiar. And if you betray me," Daenerys continued, "I will feed you to Drogon." At the name Drogon, Visenya's head lifted slightly, as if recognizing it. Tyrion's smile was thin. "That's the advantage of being hated," he said. "No one expects loyalty, It gives you room to choose it. Daenerys stared at him, trying to decide whether the words were true or simply well-shaped lies. Outside, thunder rumbled over the bay. The lamp flames trembled. Visenya's pale gold eyes reflected the light like coins, and Daenerys felt, with sudden clarity, that the dragon had already chosen something. She did not know yet what it would cost her. They did not lock Tyrion Lannister in a cell, but the room they gave him could not hide what it was. The door was thick. The window was high. The Unsullied outside the threshold did not move except to breathe. Tyrion Lannister could have screamed until his throat bled, and the only response would have been a blank stare and the soft shift of a spear. It was a cage dressed in courtesy. He sat at the low table with a quill in his hand and the smell of ink rising sharp in his nose. The lamp's oil burned clean, but the room still carried the pyramid's old scent. Stone warmed by centuries of bodies, smoke ground into cracks, a faint sweetness like old perfume that had seeped into the walls. On the table were scrolls in Giscari script, a few in the common tongue, and one precious thing. A map of Westeros, drawn with a careful hand, the coastline familiar as an old scar. He traced the outline of the fingers with his gaze, then the riverlands, then the long spine of the King's Road. He wondered where Cersei was now, whether she slept peacefully, whether she dreamed of him with her hands around his throat. Let her dream, he thought. Dreams are the only place she can kill me now. Rain tapped at the window, steady and impatient. It ran down the stone in thin lines, catching torchlight from outside and turning it into trembling gold. Meereen sprawled below, its pyramids like jagged teeth, its streets narrow and crowded even in night. Torches flickered. Somewhere a drumbeat thudded. A patrol, a warning, a celebration he could not name. Somewhere else a scream rose and cut off abruptly. Tyrion Lannister's quill hovered above the parchment. He tried to write lists, names, alliances, supply lines, but the sounds of the city kept dragging his mind away. He had lived in King's Landing long enough to know the music of a city's fear. Meereen's fear had a different rhythm, but it was fear all the same. A scrape sounded on the balcony rail. Tyrion Lannister looked up. Visenya crouched outside the window, rain beating on ash-pale scales. The dragon held a goat bone in its claws, the marrow glistening. It tore a strip of meat with small, sharp teeth and swallowed without haste. Its wings were half-furled, membranes shimmering with faint gold flecks when the lamplight touched them. Pale gold eyes watched Tyrion as if he were another strange object placed in its world. Tyrion Lannister had learned not to show fear to men. He had not yet learned the same discipline with dragons. His throat tightened anyway. He forced himself to breathe and leaned back slightly, making no sudden movement. "Hello," he said softly, and felt absurd speaking to a creature that could one day eat him whole. Visenya blinked. Tyrion Lannister's gaze flicked to the Unsullied by the door. The soldier stood like a statue, eyes forward, not reacting. Either he did not care, or he had been ordered not to. Tyrion suspected the latter. Daenerys Targaryen was not foolish enough to let him speak to the dragon without someone watching. The question was whether she believed watching would matter. Tyrion Lannister lifted his hand slowly, palm open. He did not reach out. He only offered the gesture through the window's gap like a man offering bread to a wary dog. Visenya's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. The dragon shifted forward a fraction, claws scraping stone. Tyrion Lannister swallowed. "I don't have goat," he murmured. "Only words. I've always been better at those." He tried to remember the Valyrian phrases he had stumbled through in the pit. He had learned scraps from books, from old maester's notes, from the stubborn habit of collecting knowledge as if it were armor. He had never expected to use them. "Zaldrizes," he whispered again. Visenya's head tilted. The dragon's eyes narrowed slightly, as if focusing. The reaction sent a jolt through Tyrion Lannister's chest, ridiculous hope rising like a bubble. He crushed it. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you stupid. Still, he spoke again, softer. "SYZ," he said. "Come." Visenya made a low sound, not quite a growl. It shifted closer until its snout was near the window gap. Heat washed into the room, carrying smoke and the copper tang of blood. Tyrion Lannister held his breath and extended 2 fingers. Visenya's snout touched them, gentle and hot. The scales were smoother than he expected. The contact made his skin prickle as if something had been poured into him. A warmth that did not belong to the lamp. He withdrew his fingers quickly before his courage betrayed him entirely. Visenya watched him, unblinking. Tyrion Lannister let out a shaky breath and laughed under it. "Well," he murmured, "this is going to complicate my life." Visenya chuffed softly, a puff of warm air that smelled faintly of ash and meat. Tyrion Lannister turned back to the parchment. His quill scratched again, but the words he wrote were not only about Westeros. They were about Meereen, about siege lines, about the way the city's gates were watched, about the factions inside the walls. He wrote names he had heard from servants and guards: Hizdar Zo Lorak, Skahaz Emo Kandak, Galaza Galar. He marked who wanted peace and who wanted blood. He wrote Daenerys Targaryen's name last, and stared at it for a long moment. A girl who had become fire. A queen who had made enemies by doing what she believed was right. A woman trapped between mercy and rule. And now, a woman whose dragon had pressed itself against a man born to be laughed at. Tyrion Lannister's quill paused. "Why?" he whispered, not to the dragon but to the world. "Why me?" Visenya tore another strip of meat and swallowed, indifferent to his question. It watched him write as if that, too, were part of the bond. Tyrion Lannister forced himself to keep scratching ink across parchment. He could not control dragons, but he could control plans. He could not control Daenerys Targaryen's temper, but he could offer her choices that made sense. Outside, thunder rumbled again, and somewhere in the city the bells on a queen's braids chimed faintly as she moved through her own cage. Tyrion Lannister wrote until the lamp's oil thinned, and all the while Visenya stayed on the rail, rain washing its scales clean, pale gold eyes never quite leaving him. The terrace wind carried the sound of siege. Not battle, not yet, Meereen's walls held, but the restless noise of thousands of men who could not go home until someone broke. Hammers rang in the distance as siege engines were repaired. Drums beat in uneven patterns. Occasionally a shout rose, sharp, then faded, swallowed by the sheer weight of bodies in camp. Daenerys stood at the table with her hands flat on the map, feeling the parchment flutter under her palms. The morning sky was low and gray, threatening rain but holding it back as if even the clouds wanted to watch. Daario Naharis lounged on one side, swagger dressed as ease. His hair was dark, his smile too bright for war, and his eyes tracked Daenerys' face as if he fed on her attention. He wore mismatched finery, rings, bright cloth, a dagger with an ornate hilt, like a man who refused to let war make him plain. Hizdar Zo Lorak stood opposite, silk immaculate, expression careful. He held himself like a man at a feast, though the feast here was death. His fingers rested lightly on the table, rings catching light. Skahaz Emo Kandak leaned in close, bronze mask reflecting the map's lines, his presence a pressure. Grey Worm stood rigid at Daenerys' shoulder. Ser Barristan Selmy's eyes moved constantly, as if he expected an arrow even here. Resnak Emo Resnak, nervous, perfumed, hovered like a man who wanted to be invisible and knew he could not. And Tyrion Lannister stood under guard, small among taller men, but somehow central anyway, like a thorn in a hand no one could ignore. Visenya perched on the parapet behind him, a pale shadow against stone, watching the council with two bright eyes. Daenerys forced herself not to look at the dragon. "Speak," she said to Tyrion. "You said you had counsel." Tyrion's gaze traced the map. "Your walls are strong," he began. "Your enemies know it. That's why they are not storming. They are strangling." Hizdar's lips tightened. "We know this," he said. "We are not children." Tyrion glanced at him. "No," he agreed. "Children would have attacked already. These men have patience because they have slaves to dig their latrines and soldiers to die for them. Time does not cost them the way it costs you." Dario's grin flashed. So we ride out and cut their throats, he said. Simple. Grey Worm's voice was calm. A sortie will cost many, he said, but it may break them. Skahaz Emo Kandak's masked head inclined. Or we strike their leaders, he said. Take hostages. Kill one of their noble masters each dawn until they kneel. Daenerys's stomach twisted. No, she said sharply. Skahaz Emo Kandak's voice was syrup over steel. Then they will kill yours, he replied. Tyrion lifted a hand, palm out, as if stopping a brawl in a tavern. There is another way, he said. Not clean, but cleaner than throwing your unsullied against siege towers. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. Speak plainly. Tyrion tapped the map's outer ring where Sellsword companies were marked. D. Your enemy's strength is not their courage, he said. It's their coin. Many of these men outside your walls do not care who rules Meereen. They care who pays. Dario's eyes sharpened. Sellswords, he said, amused. You think you can buy them? I think you can borrow them, Tyrion corrected. For the price of a promise and a purse. Hisdar scoffed softly. With what gold? The city is strained. The freedmen. The masters inside your walls still have gold, Tyrion said, and let the sentence hang like bait. Resnak Emo Resnak made a small choking sound. Your grace, he squeaked. Surely you do not mean. Daenerys's eyes flicked to Resnak. She knew what he meant. The great masters she had spared still sat on their wealth like hens on eggs. She had taken much, redistributed much, but Meereen's riches were deep-rooted. I mean, Tyrion continued smoothly, that if you are willing to take what your enemies inside the walls hoard, you can buy the loyalty of men outside them. Split the besiegers. Make them turn on one another. A siege camp is a nest of grudges held together by discipline and pay. Break the pay and the discipline breaks. Grey Worm's face remained unreadable, but Daenerys saw the flicker of interest in his eyes.
Serbaristan selmai froned.
Buying Sellswords is uncertain, he said. Their loyalty can be bought back. Then buy them twice, Tyrion said. Or better, buy them with something coin cannot match. Freedom, land, a place in a new world that does not treat them like disposable knives. Dario laughed. A pretty speech, he said. Sellswords want gold, not sermons. Tyrion's gaze slid to Dario. And yet you are here, he said. Not because gold called you, but because she did. Dario's grin thinned. His hand drifted toward his dagger, then stopped. Daenerys's gaze snapped between them, warning both. Tyrion turned back to the map. While you do that, he continued, you use your dragons as fear, not as slaughter. Burn their siege engines, not their tents. Burn their ships, not their children. Hisdar's eyes widened. The harbor ships are full of slaves, he said quickly. Burn them and you burn your own cause. Daenerys's throat tightened. Hisdar was right. Some of those ships carried chained men, cargo treated as meat. Tyrion nodded once. Then you target the ships that carry food and weapons, he said. You do it at night. You do it with precision. You make the besiegers understand that staying is expensive. Skahaz Emo Kandak's bronze mask turned toward Visenya on the parapet. And which dragon will do this? He asked. The ones chained below? The one that flies wild? Or the one that follows the dwarf? The words hit like a thrown stone. The terrace wind seemed to still. Daenerys felt heat rise behind her eyes. She hated that the question was fair. Tyrion did not look back at Visenya. He kept his gaze on Daenerys, steady. I am not asking to ride, he said quietly. I am asking you to use the tools why. You have. If the tool does not fit your hand. Enough, Daenerys snapped. Do not speak of my dragons as tools. Tyrion bowed his head a fraction. As you wish, he said. But your enemies speak of them as trophies. Daenerys stared at the map, at the ring of tents around her city, at the ships in her bay. She imagined fire touching them, imagined screaming, imagined the line between necessary and monstrous blurring. Visenya shifted on the parapet, claws scraping stone, as if impatient with talk. Daenerys made herself look at the dragon at last. Visenya's pale gold eyes were on Tyrion. Always on Tyrion. Daenerys felt something in her chest tighten. Anger, jealousy, fear, and a deeper ache she refused to name. She had brought dragons back into the world with her own flesh and blood, with her own fire. And now one of them looked at another man as if he were the center of its sky. Daenerys turned back to the table. "We will not starve," she said, voice hardening into decision. "We will not surrender, and we will not become the monsters they call us." Her fingers closed around a bronze war piece and moved it, pushing it into the enemy camp on the map. "But we will make them bleed for every day they think they can wait." Tyrion's eyes gleamed. "That," he murmured, "I understand." The first sound was not footsteps. It was the soft click of a latch. Tyrion Lannister's eyes opened at once. Sleep had been thin and wary in Meereen, a thing that came in shallow waves and broke at the smallest disturbance. He lay still in the dark, listening. Another click, then the faint whisper of wood shifting. Not the main door. The main door was heavy, guarded. The sound came from the side. An old service entrance hidden behind a tapestry, perhaps, the kind of passage masters built so their servants could move unseen. Tyrion Lannister's heart began to pound. The shadow of the tapestry moved. A figure slid through, silent, quick, dressed in black. A second followed. The third. Masks covered their faces. Harpy masks, lacquered and cruel, with beaks and hollow eyes. In the flicker of the lamp, they looked like demons crawling out of Meereen's old religion. The first assassin's dagger caught lamplight as it lifted. Tyrion Lannister rolled off the bed and hit the floor hard, pain shooting through his shoulder. The blade struck where his throat had been an instant before, slicing pillow feathers into the air. He scrambled backward, hands searching for anything on the low table. His fingers closed on a candlestick, heavy brass. The assassins moved with practiced precision. Not drunk thugs, not desperate slaves. This was an order, a ritual. One of them flicked his wrist, and something small and dark flew. An iron dart. It buried itself in the neck of the unsullied guard who had been stationed inside the room, hidden near the door. The soldier made a sound like a surprised breath and crumpled, blood spreading fast. Tyrion Lannister's stomach lurched. The Unsullied were not supposed to fall. They were supposed to be the world's proof that discipline could defeat fear. The first assassin advanced, dagger aimed for Tyrion's heart. Tyrion swung the candlestick, connected with the mask, not the skull. The lacquer cracked. The assassin staggered, more startled than hurt, and the beak split enough for Tyrion Lannister to glimpse an eye dark, furious human. "Help!" Tyrion Lannister shouted, though he knew the thick walls might swallow his voice. The second assassin lunged. Tyrion ducked, felt the blade whisper past his scalp. He jabbed with the candlestick like a spear, hitting the man's throat. The assassin gagged and stumbled. Too slow, too clumsy. Tyrion Lannister's arms shook. He was not a fighter. He was a man who survived battles by standing behind stronger men and being clever. Cleverness did not stop a knife in the dark. The third assassin came in low, aiming for Tyrion's belly. Tyrion twisted, felt the blade graze his side, a hot line of pain. He hissed and stumbled back, nearly falling over the low table. He smelled blood, his own and the Unsullied's. The harpy masks turned toward him in unison, like birds scenting meat, and then a different sound filled the room. A low chirr, almost curious. Heat rushed in fro. The balcony as if the air itself had been punched. Visenya leapt through the window gap with a suddenness that made the assassins falter. Wings flared wide, scattering rain droplets into the room. The dragon's ash-pale scales caught the lamplight and turned it strange, shadow and gold together. Its pale eyes fixed on the nearest masked man. For a heartbeat, the room held still. Then Visenya opened its mouth. Flame burst out. Not the world-ending torrent Tyrion Lannister had imagined from old stories, but a concentrated jet, hot and bright, like a smith's breath. It struck the assassin square in the chest. The mask ignited. The black cloth caught. The man screamed, a sound so sudden and high it felt unreal, and stumbled backward, hands clawing at fire that did not care. He slammed into the wall and fell, writhing. The other two assassins froze, terror finally breaking their discipline. One raised his dagger as if it could defend him from fire. The other turned to flee toward the service passage. Visenya pounced, fast as a striking cat. Claws caught cloth. The dragon's tail lashed, and the fleeing man fell hard. Visenya snapped at him, teeth closing on shoulder, and the man's scream cut off into a wet gurgle. The dagger man lunged at Visenya, desperate. Tyrion Lannister saw the blade flash toward the dragon's eye and, without thinking, shouted the word that had been branded into the world by a queen's voice. Dracarys! Visenya's head snapped toward him. The dragon's eyes narrowed as if the word were a key fitting a lock. Fire exploded. The assassin vanished behind flame. When the fire cleared, he was on the floor, twitching, clothes burned to ash. The harpy mask melted into his face. Smoke filled the room, thick and bitter. The lamp flame guttered. Tyrion Lannister coughed, eyes streaming. Visenya stood over the bodies, wings half open, chest rising and falling. A small furnace in the dark. It turned its head toward Tyrion and chirred again, softer now. Tyrion Lannister stared at it, breath ragged, and realized what he had just done. He had commanded a dragon. Behind him, the main door crashed open. Grey Worm burst in with Unsullied at his back, spears up. Missandei followed, face pale with horror, hair loose as if she had woken and run without thinking. They stopped short at the sight of the bodies, burned, torn, smoking. Grey Worm's gaze snapped from the dead men to Visenya, then to Tyrion. For the first time, Grey Worm's expression cracked, something like uncertainty flickering. Missandei covered her mouth, eyes wide. Tyrion, she whispered, as if his name had become a prayer or a curse. Tyrion Lannister's hands shook. He held up his palms, blackened slightly by soot. "They came to kill me," he rasped. "I suppose I offended someone." Grey Worm stepped toward the bodies, spear tip nudging a melted mask. "Sons of the Harpy," he said flatly. Missandei's gaze went to Visenya, then back to Tyrion. "She came," she whispered. Visenya moved closer to Tyrion, pressing its warm head briefly against his leg, as if claiming him in front of witnesses. The gesture made Tyrion Lannister's stomach twist with something he could not name. Gratitude, fear, awe, all tangled. Grey Worm's voice was tight. "The Queen must know," he said. Tyrion Lannister swallowed smoke and blood. "Yes," he said hoarse. "She must," because there was no hiding what had happened now. Meereen had tried to kill him, and a dragon had answered. And Daenerys Targaryen would hear that her word, spoken by another mouth, had become flame. Daenerys did not sleep after the Harpy attack. She walked the pyramid's corridors until the soles of her feet ached and the bells in her braids chimed like restless insects. She listened to reports with a face carved from stone, and each report drove the knife deeper. The assassins had breached her own walls. Her Unsullied had fallen. Tyrion Lannister had spoken her word, and a dragon had obeyed. When Grey Worm finished, Daenerys' voice was quiet. "Take me to them," she said. They brought her to the dragon pit. Down the steep stairs, past scorched stone, past the iron-banded door. Heat rolled out to greet her like an accusation. Regal and Viserion rumbled in the dark, sensing her anger. Their chains clanked, the sound a harsh music. Smoke drifted along the ceiling in slow curls. Visenya was not chained. Visenya crouched on a low stone ledge near the entrance, smaller than the others but no less alive. Its pale gold eyes watched Daenerys as she entered, unblinking. Tyrion Lannister stood nearby under guard. His face was streaked with soot, a fresh cut on his side bandaged in rough linen. He looked tired and strangely alert, like a man who had been forced awake into a new world. Daenerys stopped a few paces from him. Grey Worm and Unsullied held chains coiled in their arms like snakes ready to strike. Ser Barristan Selmy stood behind Daenerys, his worry a palpable thing. Daenerys's gaze fixed on Visenya. "Come," she commanded in High Valyrian, voice sharp as a whip. Visenya did not move. Daenerys's throat tightened. She spoke again, harsher, the old words biting. "Come to me." Visenya blinked slowly. Then the dragon's head turned, just slightly, toward Tyrion Lannister. The motion was small. The humiliation was not. Daenerys felt heat rush up her neck. For a heartbeat she wanted to scream, to strike, to prove that she was not a girl being ignored by her own creature. She had bent cities. She had walked through fire. She had broken chains. And still a dragon looked away from her. "Chain it," Daenerys said, voice cold. "Now." Grey Worm's hand tightened on the chain coil. Unsullied stepped forward, disciplined, brave in the face of monsters. Visenya's wings flared, sudden, filling the space with a rush of air. The dragon hissed, a sharp sound that cut through the pit's deeper rumbles. Smoke puffed from its nostrils. The nearest Unsullied hesitated. Only a fraction of a second, but enough. Daenerys lifted her chin. "Do it," she said, and she hated the way the words sounded like pleading. The Unsullied moved in. Visenya lunged, not at the men at the chain. The dragon snapped at the iron as if it were an enemy, teeth scraping sparks from metal. The chain swung, heavy, and the dragon's head jerked back, but it did not retreat. Its eyes were bright and furious, fixed on the iron like a creature that had been born free and refused the idea of restraint. Daenerys's pulse hammered. If Visenya burned them, if it killed her own soldiers, then, what did that make her? A queen whose justice died in dragonfire? "Tyrion," Ser Barristan Selmy said low, as if the word tasted wrong. "Speak to it." Daenerys's head snapped toward Ser Barristan. "Do not." But Tyrion Lannister stepped forward anyway, and Daenerys felt something in her chest twist, sharp and powerless. Tyrion raised his hand, palm outward, slow and careful. He did not look at Daenerys. He looked at Visenya, gaze steady. "Matsis," he said softly, "be calm." Visenya's head turned toward him instantly, as if the voice were a rope pulling it. The dragon's wings lowered a fraction. The hiss softened into a low rumble. Tyrion took another step. "Kirimvos," he murmured. "Listen." Visenya blinked. Its tail lashed once against stone, then stilled. Tyrion's voice remained low, intimate, as if he were speaking to a frightened child. "Sir," he said, "peace." The dragon's chest rose and fell. Smoke leaked from its nostrils in slow, reluctant streams. Tyrion glanced at the chain in Grey Worm's hands, then back to Visenya. "Vestry," he said, "be still." Visenya lowered its head slightly. Daenerys's nails bit into her palm again. She watched, jaw clenched, as her dragon responded to another man's tongue. Grey Worm looked at Daenerys, awaiting command. Daenerys forced her voice steady. "Chain her," she said, and the words tasted like swallowing glass. The Unsullied approached again, moving slow now, guided by Tyrion's calming cadence. Visenya watched them warily, but did not lash out. When the chain was slipped around the dragon's foreleg, Visenya flinched, then stilled as Tyrion murmured again, soft, steady. The chain tightened, iron met scale. Visenya's eyes flicked to Tyrion, and the dragon made a small, plaintive sound that cut Daenerys more than any roar. Tyrion's face tightened, as if the sound hurt him too. He murmured another Valyrian phrase, softer, soothing, and Visenya's wings folded in, reluctant obedience settling like a cloak. When it was done, Visenya sat chained near the entrance, smaller than the others but now bound all the same. Daenerys stared at the chains as if they were wrapped around her own wrists. She turned on Tyrion Lannister. "You spoke my word," she said, voice low and dangerous, "and my dragon obeyed." Tyrion met her gaze, and for once there was no mockery in his eyes, only caution. I spoke your word because men with knives were in my room, he said. And your dragon was there. You could have died, Daenerys said. Yes, Tyrion replied. But I didn't. Daenerys felt the pit's heat press against her skin, making her cloak heavy, making her breath feel thick. She wanted to strike him. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to drag him close and demand answers she did not know how to ask. Instead, she said, "You will not ride her." Tyrion's brows rose slightly. "I have not asked to." "You will not," Daenerys repeated, each word an iron bar. "You will not touch her without my leave. You will know. Speak to her without my leave." Tyrion hesitated, then nodded once. "As you command," he said quietly. Daenerys held his gaze a moment longer, searching for defiance. She found only the careful stillness of a man who knew when to bend. "Good," she said, though it did not feel good at all. She turned away from him and looked into the darkness where Regal and Viserion glared, chained and furious. Somewhere above, Drogon flew free, and she did not know where. Daenerys Targaryen had 3 dragons by right of miracle and fire, and now she had a 4th chained by necessity, a 4th that had listened to another voice as if it had always been meant to. She walked back toward the stairs with her cloak dragging like a wound behind her. In the dark, Visenya's pale gold eyes followed Tyrion Lannister until the door shut and the sound of chains became the only answer. The wind on the wall tasted of ash. Daenerys stood with her hands on the battlement stone, staring down at the ring of camps that choked her city. The besiegers had built their world out of canvas and arrogance. Tents in neat rows, cookfires smoking, banners snapping. Beyond them, the siege engines waited, trebuchets and catapults like skeletal beasts, their arms poised. Here and there, funeral pyres burned. The plague did not respect banners. It moved through the camps like an unseen army, taking men in the night and leaving them empty by morning. Smoke rose from the pyres in thin columns, dark against the bruised sky. Grey Worm stood a pace behind Daenerys, silent as always, while Ser Barristan Selmy watched the horizon as if expecting cavalry to erupt from it. Tyrion Lannister stood with them, flanked by Unsullied, his gaze on the camps with a grim sort of interest. He looked less like a prisoner here and more like a man invited to the edge of a battlefield. A distant shout rose from below as a trebuchet crew adjusted their ropes. The huge arm creaked, then snapped forward. Something flew through the air in a long arc. Daenerys' stomach clenched as she recognized it even before it cleared the dust. A corpse, swollen and dark, smeared with something wet that glistened, spun slowly, limbs flopping. It struck the city wall with a wet thud and burst, spilling rot and flies. Soldiers on the wall shouted. A few recoiled. The stench reached Daenerys a heartbeat later, and she swallowed bile. "They are flinging plague at us," Missandei had said earlier, voice horrified. The Pale Mare had already walked Meereen's streets. Now the besiegers were trying to invite her deeper. "Animals," Daenerys murmured. Tyrion's voice was quiet. "Men," he corrected. "Men who have decided you are worse than they are. That belief makes cruelty easy." Daenerys' hands tightened on the stone. "They would put chains back on children," she said. "They would sell my people like meat." Tyrion's gaze remained on the camps. "Yes," he said, "and if they win, they will build songs about their order returning." Daenerys turned her head, studying him. "You speak as if you despise them," she said. Tyrion's mouth twisted. "I despise hypocrisy," he replied. "A slaver who admits he likes owning people is at least honest. A slaver who tells himself he is civilized while he does it is tedious." Ser Barristan Selmy made a small sound of approval, almost reluctant. Grey Worm's voice was flat. "They will try to starve us," he said. "Then they will try to take the city." Daenerys stared at the camps again. "How long?" she asked. Grey Worm did not hesitate. "Weeks," he said. "Months, if the people do not rise inside first." Daenerys felt the weight of Meereen behind her. Pyramids full of old families, alleys full of freedmen, whispers of harpies. Hunger would sharpen every knife. Fear would turn neighbor against neighbor. And if we do nothing, Tyrion said, they do. Not even have to storm the walls. They simply wait until your city eats itself. Daenerys's eyes narrowed. So you would have me burn them, she said. With dragons. Tyrion's gaze flicked to her, steady. I would have you make them afraid to wait, he said. There is a difference between burning an army and burning its ability to sit comfortably. Daenerys laughed once, bitter. You speak of comfort as if it were a weapon. It is, Tyrion said. War is not only blood. It is bread. It is latrines. It is the mood of men when the night wind blows and they realize they may die far from home for someone else's gold. Below, another pyre flared, sending sparks up into the dusk. Daenerys watched the sparks and thought of fire, always fire. The temptation was strong, a whisper in her blood. Burn them, end it, show them what it means to defy the dragon. And then she imagined the screams, imagined bodies piled, imagined her name whispered in terror, not hope. She looked at Tyrion again. What would you do? She asked softly. If you had dragons? Tyrion's expression shifted, something darker sliding beneath the cleverness. I would be terrified of myself, he admitted, because I know what I am capable of when I stop pretending I'm civilized. Daenerys felt a chill, despite the heat. A gust of wind lifted her cloak. She tasted ash again and realized it was not only from pyres. Far beyond the camps, on the horizon, smoke rose from ships. Dark shapes in the bay, sails like black teeth. Volantis, Ser Barristan Selmy said quietly, following her gaze. They send a fleet. Daenerys's mouth tightened. More chains, she said. Grey Worm's eyes narrowed. They come, he said, voice like a blade being drawn. Tyrion stared at the distant ships. Then we have less time, he murmured. Daenerys watched the bay and felt the city's weight press on her shoulders. She had wanted to be a breaker of chains, not a burner of worlds. But the world kept offering her fire as the only language its enemies understood. They rode out beneath a banner of peace and into a field that reeked of sickness. The truce tent stood on the flat plain between city and camp, a pale blot against brown earth. Dust blew in low sheets, catching in nostrils and teeth. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, horse, and the sweet sour tang of dysentery that clung to the besiegers like a curse. Daenerys rode at the head, her horse's hoofs thudding steady. Grey Worm rode at her left, his posture rigid even in the saddle. Ser Barristan Selmy rode at her right, white cloak fluttering, eyes scanning the camp as if expecting a bolt from a crossbow at any moment. Behind them, Unsullied marched in disciplined lines, spears upright, faces blank. Tyrion Lannister rode too, on a dun horse more stubborn than swift, under guard and watched from both sides. The saddle had been adjusted for him, but he still looked odd on horseback. Small, compact, perched like a bird that had been forced to pretend it was a hawk. Above, a small shadow crossed the sky. Visenya circled high, wings cutting the bright air. The dragon's presence made the light feel sharper, the sky less safe. Even small, even distant, it drew eyes like a wound draws flies. Daenerys kept her face still. She would not look up. She would not show that the dragon's flight was not entirely her command. Across the plain, the Giscari waited. Yurka Zoyunzak of Yunkai stood beneath a silk canopy, surrounded by men in ornate togas and gold masks. Their hair was oiled and curled. Their hands were heavy with rings. They looked like men who had dressed for a wedding, not a war. Behind them stood slave soldiers with shaved heads and dead eyes, and sellswords with scarred faces and sharp, hungry gazes. Banners snapped above the camp, harpies and tigers and strange sigils of distant cities that had smelled profit and come running. As Daenerys dismounted, Yurka Zoyunzak stepped forward, smiling with too many teeth. "Daenerys Stormborn," he said in the common tongue, thickly accented but practiced. "Mother of dragons, breaker of chains, queen of a city that does not want you." Daenerys met his smile with her own, cold. Yurka Zoyunzak, she said. Butcher of children, seller of men, lord of a camp that stinks of shit and fear. A murmur rippled through the Giskari ranks. Yurka's smile tightened, but he kept it. Bold, he said. As always, it is why we admire you even as we oppose you. Then admire me from farther away, Daenerys said. Lift your siege. Yurkas laughed softly. We cannot, he said. Not until the world is put back in order. Daenerys's eyes hardened. Your order is chains. Yurkas spread his hands as if offering reason. Chains are mercy, he said smoothly. They give men purpose. They keep cities functioning. Look at your Meereen now. Murder in the streets, plague, hunger. You broke the wheel and the cart has fallen into the mud. Daenerys felt heat rise in her chest. Anger like a living thing. Shiefo. RCD it down. You came to talk, she said. So talk. Yurkas nodded, as if pleased. Very well, he said. We will give you terms. Surrender the city. Surrender your Unsullied. These eunuchs are stolen property. Surrender your dragons. Return Meereen to its masters, and we will allow you to leave with your life. The words were spoken with calm certainty, as if offering bread to a beggar. Daenerys's hands clenched at her sides. Never, she said. Yurkas sighed theatrically. Then you will die here, he said. Slowly, your people will beg to open the gates. And when they do, we will be merciful. We will not crucify you as you crucified our brothers. We will simply hang you and your followers, and we will chain the survivors again. The world will remember that rebellion ends in rope. A sharp laugh cut the air. Tyrion Lannister stepped forward, as far as his guards allowed, and dipped in a mock bow. Marvelous, he said. You threaten a queen with rope, and you do it while your own camp burns its dead by the hundreds. Perhaps you should threaten her with latrines. That seems to be your strongest weapon. Yurka's gold mask turned slightly, as if he were not sure whether to be offended by a dwarf. And you are? He asked. A mistake, Tyrion said cheerfully, but one you may come to regret. One of the Giskari masters hissed. A Lannister, he spat, recognizing the name like rot. Tyrion's smile sharpened. Yes, he said, we have a talent for survival. Daenerys shot him a warning look. This was not the place for games. And yet she could not deny the small, vicious satisfaction of seeing the Giskari unsettled by a man who did not fear their gold masks. Yurkas recovered his composure. You bring your pets to bark, he said to Daenerys. Does it amuse you? Daenerys's eyes flicked upward despite herself. Visenya circled lower now, the dragon's shadow sliding across the truce tent like a knife. The Sellsword's eyes followed it, some with awe, some with greed, some with fear so naked it made them look like children. Daenerys forced her gaze back to Yurkas. It reminds you, she said, voice calm, that you are not safe. Yurka's smile returned, brittle. Dragons are flesh, he said. Flesh can be pierced. Flesh can be chained. Flesh can be sold. A cold anger steadied Daenerys. Try, she said simply. For a heartbeat, silence held. Then a creak sounded from the besiegers' lines. A siege engine arm drew back. A stone launched, whether by accident or deliberate insult, Daenerys could not tell. It arced toward the truce tent. Ser Barristan Selmy's hand went to his sword. Grey Worm's horse shifted, restless. Above, Visenya's wings beat once, hard. The dragon dropped like a falling star. Heat washed over the field as Visenya swept low, mouth opening. A burst of flame struck the stone midair. The rock shattered into glowing fragments that rained down, hissing in dust. The camp erupted in shouts. Horses reared. Men threw themselves. Elves to the ground. Visenya climbed again, circling, smoke trailing from its nostrils. Daenerys's heart hammered. She had not commanded that. She had not spoken a word. Tyrion Lannister stared up, face lit by reflected fire, and Daenerys saw his lips move. Too small to hear, but she knew the shape now. A Valyrian word. A whisper. Daenerys turned on him, fury flaring, but Tyrion's eyes were still on the sky, stunned as if he had not expected it either. Yurka's Zoyunzak took a step back, his mask gleaming. "So," he said hoarsely, "this is the kind of peace you offer." Daenerys's voice was cold. "This is the kind of war you chose," she said. She swung into the saddle without another word. Grey Worm and Ser Barristan fell in. The Unsullied moved like a wall around her. Tyrion was hauled after, guards tense. As they rode back toward Meereen's gate, Daenerys could feel the besiegers' eyes on her back, fear sharpening into hatred. Above them, Visenya circled once more, and for an instant the dragon's pale gold gaze flicked down toward Tyrion like a glance between conspirators. Daenerys felt her stomach twist. Peace had been a banner. Now it was ash. Later, when the city's gates were shut again and the dust of the plain had been left outside, Daenerys found herself in a corridor she did not remember choosing. The tapestry on the wall showed an old Giscari triumph. Harpies crowned, slaves kneeling. Someone had tried to stitch over the faces with new thread, but the old shapes still showed beneath like bruises under skin. A single oil lamp burned on a low table, its flame small and stubborn. Daenerys sat on a stone bench with her hands clasped tight in her lap, feeling the day's rage settle into exhaustion that weighed on her bones. Ser Barristan Selmy sat beside her, careful not to crowd. He looked older in the lamplight, his lines deeper. The white cloak pooled around him like snow that would never melt here. Missandei stood a few steps away with a scroll clutched to her chest, as if she could hold the world together by holding paper. Daenerys stared at the lamp flame until her eyes watered. "He spoke to it," she said finally, voice rough. "He whispered and it answered." Ser Barristan Selmy did not pretend surprise. "I saw," he said quietly. Daenerys's fingers tightened. "How is that possible?" she demanded. "Dragons they are mine. They were born from my fire, from my blood." Ser Barristan Selmy's gaze held steady. "They were born in your fire," he corrected gently, "but they were not born from your will alone." Daenerys's jaw clenched. "Do not speak to me like I am a child," she said. Ser Barristan Selmy bowed his head slightly. "Forgive me," he said, "but you asked, and the answer is not simple." Daenerys let out a harsh breath. "Then tell me the hard truth." Ser Barristan Selmy was silent for a moment, as if choosing which truth would wound least. "In the days of the Targaryen kings," he began, "there were always others, bastards of dragon lords, boys raised in shadows, men who claimed blood that was not theirs, and sometimes, dragons listened anyway." Daenerys's eyes narrowed. "You mean dragon seeds?"
Ser Barristan Nadith.
"Yes," he said. "During the Dance of the Dragons, when Targaryens fought Targaryens, men sought riders wherever they could. Some succeeded, some died." Missandei's voice was soft. "Nettles," she said, almost shyly, as if naming a ghost. Ser Barristan's eyes flicked to her, approving. "Nettles," he agreed. "A girl said to have no dragon blood at all. Some said she was a bastard. Some said she was nothing. Yet she rode Sheepstealer, not by command, by patience, by feeding him, by understanding what he wanted." Daenerys felt a strange chill. She had heard the name in scraps, old stories whispered by men who still loved Targaryen legends. She had never thought it would matter to her. "You are telling me blood is not enough," Daenerys said. "I am telling you blood is not always the only key," Ser Barristan said carefully. Daenerys's hands unclasped and reclasped, restless. "Then why him?" she asked, and hated how small the question sounded. "Why does my dragon look at him?"
Se Barristans Gaza Lubarat.
"There were whispers," he said slowly. "In King's Landing, old whispers, the sort men speak and then laugh at, as if laughter can erase what they have said." Daenerys's breath caught. "What whispers?" she demanded. Ser Barristan hesitated, and Daenerys felt her impatience flare. "Tell me," she said, sharper. "I am your queen." Ser Barristan's voice was low. "They said the Mad King took liberties. he said. "With Joanna Lannister. Your father's court had ugliness in it. He desired many things. Some he took." Missandei's eyes widened, scandal and horror flickering across her face. Daenerys felt as if the corridor had narrowed. Joanna Lannister, Tyrion's mother, dead in childbirth. She remembered hearing the name in Pentos, spoken by Illyrio as if it were a detail in a play. A great lady who died bringing a monster into the world. "You do not know," Daenerys said, voice tight. "You do not know if it is true."
Nu, serbahistam admitted.
"I do not, and I would not stain your father's name with certainty where there is only rumor. But rumor is a seed. It grows if you water it." Daenerys's mouth tightened. Her father's name had been stained already. Madness, wildfire, screams. She had spent her life carrying his shadow without ever seeing his face. Now she was being asked to imagine him in another woman's bed, taking what was not his, planting blood in a lion's womb. It made her sick, and yet, if it were true, it would make Tyrion something else. Not just a Lannister, not just a clever dwarf, a bastard of the dragon. Daenerys stared at the lamp flame and felt her thoughts turn like ash in a wind. Missandei stepped closer, voice gentle. "Your Grace," she said. "Even if the rumor were true, it does not mean he is loyal. It does not mean he is good." Daenerys's laugh was soft and bitter. "No," she said. "It only means the world is crueler than I thought." Ser Barristan's voice was firm. "Your Grace, whether he has Targaryen blood or not, whether the dragon favors him for some reason we do not understand, what matters is what you do now." Daenerys looked at him. "What would you have me do?" she asked. Ser Barristan did not flinch. "Keep him close," he said. "Not as friend, not as trusted man. As piece on the board you can watch. If you cast him out, he may become an enemy. If you kill him..." "If I kill him," Daenerys interrupted, "what will Visenya do?" The question hung in the corridor like smoke.
Se barristans jau tictanat.
"I do not know," he said honestly, "and that uncertainty is itself danger." Daenerys rose abruptly, her cloak whispering. The lamp flame wavered with her movement. She walked to the archway where the stair descended toward the pit. Darkness yawned below, warm and waiting. A faint rumble rose from deep inside the stone, like thunder trapped in a chest. Daenerys put her hand against the wall. The stone was warm. She had wanted dragons to be. Hers the way a crown was hers by right, by destiny, by the simple fact of who she was. But dragons were not crowns. They were living fire. And living fire did not always burn where you told it to. Daenerys turned back to Ser Barristan Selmy and Missandei, her face set. "Bring Tyrion Lannister to me tomorrow," she said. "And bring me saddles." Missandei's eyes widened. "Saddles?" Daenerys's voice was hard. "If the dragon wants him," she said, "then I will see what that means. And I will decide what it costs." Behind her, the rumble in the depths answered like a warning. Dawn came red, as if the sun had risen through blood. The shout reached Daenerys before the smell did. Voices from the harbor towers, frantic, cracking. "Ships!" someone cried. "They come!" Daenerys was already moving, cloak snapping behind her as she climbed the wall stairs 2 at a time. Grey Worm followed without question. Ser Barristan Selmy's boots struck stone like a drumbeat. When she reached the parapet overlooking the bay, the sight stole breath from her. The slaver fleet was moving. Not anchored and patient now, but surging forward like a pack of wolves. Ships crowded the water, oars churning, sails straining. Harpy banners whipped in the wind. Flaming arrows arced from decks, leaving thin trails of smoke. One ship crashed deliberately into the outer moorings, splintering wood, creating a gap for the others to pour through. The harbor defenses, chains stretched across water, small guard boats, buckled under the sudden assault. Daenerys's throat tightened. The harbor was Meereen's lifeline. Lose it and the city would choke faster. Archers, Grey Worm barked, and unsullied on the wall lifted bows, loosing a dark hail. Arrows fell on decks, some finding flesh, some striking wood. The ships kept coming. More arrows answered from below. A flaming shaft struck the wall near Daenerys and shattered, sparks skittering. She did not flinch. She stared at the ships, mind racing. Rhaegal and Viserion were chained below. Drogon was gone. The only dragon close enough to matter was... Her stomach nodded. "Bring him," Daenerys said, and Grey Worm did not ask who. Tyrion Lannister arrived breathless, hauled up the steps by Unsullied more careful than gentle. His hair was damp with sweat. His eyes were wide, but not with panic alone. With understanding. He followed Daenerys's gaze to the bay. "They mean to burn your ships," he said, voice tight. "They mean to take my harbor," Daenerys replied. "And then they will throw their plague corpses over my walls until my people rot." Tyrion swallowed. "Then we must burn them first," he said. Daenerys's jaw clenched. "You will not tell me what we must do," she snapped. But the anger had no place to land. The truth was already written in the water below. A blast sounded. A slaver ship had fired a scorpion bolt. The heavy spear flew with a whistling howl and slammed into a harbor tower, wood exploding outward. Men screamed as they fell. Daenerys felt the scream in her bones. "Open the pit," she ordered. "Now, bring Visenya." Ser Barristan's eyes widened. "Your Grace." "Now," Daenerys repeated. They moved with desperate speed. Unsullied raced down. Daenerys stood on the wall, watching the fleet close, watching fire spread along the outer moorings. She tasted salt and smoke and the iron tang of blood. Minutes felt like hours. Then a different heat rose along the wall, subtle at first, then swelling, like a forge door opening. Visenya burst up from below, wings beating hard. The dragon was still SM. All compared to the monsters of old songs, but against the morning sky it looked enormous enough. Its ash-pale scales caught the dawn and turned it strange. Smoke curled from its nostrils, and Tyrion Lannister, ran to the parapet as if drawn. Daenerys's throat tightened. "No," she said, but the word came too late. Visenya landed on the wall stone with a heavy thump, claws scraping, wings flaring. The dragon's pale gold eyes fixed on Tyrion, and in that instant Daenerys saw it again, clear as a wound. The bond. Tyrion slowed, hands raised. He murmured in Valyrian, soft, calming. Visenya's wings folded slightly, allowing him closer. Daenerys stepped forward, voice sharp. "You will not ride," she said, and she meant it with all the force of her fear. "Do you hear me?" Tyrion's eyes flicked to her, and for a heartbeat she saw apology there. Then he looked back at the bay, where a ship with harpy banners had turned toward the inner harbor, aiming its scorpions at the wall. "Your Grace," Tyrion said hoarsely. "With respect, listen to the sound of those bolts." Another scorpion fired. The spear screamed through air and struck stone lower down, shattering. Visenya flinched, head snapping toward the sound. Smoke puffed. The dragon was ready to answer violence with violence. Daenerys's mind raced. She could order the Unsullied to drag Tyrion back. She could order archers to shoot the dragon. An absurd thought that still flashed through her, frantic. She could do nothing and watch her harbor burn. And then she saw it. A weapons barge among the slaver ships, stacked with scorpion bolts and pitch barrels. If that barge burned, the assault would falter. Daenerys's voice went cold with decision. "If you fall," she said to Tyrion, "I will not stop the dragon from eating what is left of you." Tyrion's mouth twitched, grim. "That seems fair," he said. He climbed. There was no graceful saddle, no polished harness. Only a rough leather strap the Unsullied had thrown over Visenya's shoulders in a desperate attempt at restraint. Tyrion grabbed it with both hands and hauled himself up, clinging to warm, hard scales. Visenya shifted but did not buck him. It settled under him as if it had been waiting. Daenerys's breath caught in her throat. Grey Worm's eyes were wide, something like disbelief cracking his discipline. Ser Barristan Selmy's face was pale. Tyrion leaned forward, pressed his cheek briefly against Visenya's neck as if in communion, then lifted his head and shouted, not in fear, but in fierce command. Dracarys! Visenya launched. The dragon's wings beat, tearing air, and suddenly Tyrion Lannister was in the sky over Meereen's Bay like a blasphemy made real. Wind tore at his hair. His small body clung to dragon flesh with desperate strength. Visenya dove low, fast, a pale arrow. The slaver ships below erupted in panic. Men screamed and pointed. Scorpions cranked wildly, aiming too late. Visenya's mouth opened. Fire poured out. Brighter than sunrise. A streaming line that struck the weapon's barge and turned pitch into a blossoming inferno. The barge exploded, splintering, sending flaming debris into the water and onto nearby decks. Sailors hurled themselves overboard. Sails caught fire like paper. Tyrion clung on as the heat roared beneath him. His face lit orange. His expression a mix of terror and wild, terrible exhilaration. Daenerys watched, frozen. Part of her wanted to cheer. Part of her wanted to weep. Part of her wanted to scream at the sky and demand the world return what it had stolen. Her certainty that she alone was the dragon. Visenya climbed again, smoke trailing. A scorpion bolt flew, missing by yards, splashing into the sea. Another ship veered away, discipline breaking. The assault wavered as fear spread faster than orders. On the wall, unsullied archers loosed another volley. Harbor defenders shouted, hope rising like a wave. Daenerys' hands clenched until her nails cut skin. Tyrion Lannister circled back toward the wall, Visenya's wings beating hard. The dragon landed with a heavy thump, claws scraping, smoke curling from its mouth. Tyrion slid down, legs trembling. He staggered, nearly fell, then caught himself on the parapet stone. His face was streaked with soot and salt spray. His eyes were wide, alive in a way Daenerys had not seen in him before. He looked at Daenerys. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The battle still raged in the bay, but the moment on the wall felt separate, suspended. Daenerys stepped closer, her voice low enough that only he and the dragon could hear. You disobeyed me, she said. Tyrion swallowed. Yes, he admitted. Visenya lowered its head and pressed its warm skull briefly against Tyrion's shoulder, possessive, as if sealing the confession with acclaim. Daenerys stared at the gesture, and the fear she had been holding back finally found words in her mind. If he can ride, then he can rule. If he can command, then my fire is not mine alone. Behind them, the slaver ships burned, and the morning air filled with smoke and screaming and the taste of victory that felt like ash. Daenerys Targaryen looked at Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf on Dragonback, and knew Meereen had just birthed a new kind of danger. Not outside her walls, inside her crown.